The hero holds a lottery ticket in his hands. He needs to guess the correct 10 digits in the Loco 7 lottery. The prize is 4 billion yen. The young man guesses the correct set of numbers and wins the grand prize. With such a sum on hand, he may not work at all now. The hero imagines handing his boss a piece of paper with the name of his parents' factory and writing a letter of resignation. A young man is walking around his room and suddenly, the phone rings. An unspecified phone number is displayed on the screen. The voice on the other end asks the name of the hero and asks to transfer money to him. The young man's name is Kazura Shin. The hero is surprised. Kazura's phone is ringing off the hook. He is asked to donate money to space exploration, asked if he believes in God and is going to voice his proposal. A former classmate calls asking to borrow money. The doorbell rings. Through the peephole of the door, a young man sees an unfamiliar elderly woman who represents a volunteer organization and says that they are in a difficult financial situation right now. The doorbell keeps ringing. The man outside the door asks how much the young man has earned. A notification about 52 missed calls is visible on the phone. The hero calls his father and tells him about what happened. Kazura asks him if his father knows where he can hide. The young man is packing his things into a suitcase. The father answers the hero that the situation is serious and tells Kazura that far away in the mountains of Gunma, there is a mansion inherited from the family. The young man clings to his words. Kazura's father says he saw the mansion about 30 years ago and it was in good condition then. Immediately, the father asks to transfer 100 million to them. A joyful Kazura thanks his father for the information and his father is already asking for 500 million. Sometime later, the hero is driving fast along the road through the years. Judging by the GPS, Kazura has almost arrived at the appointed place. The hero finds himself in front of a one-story mansion somewhere in Gunma Prefecture. Kazura closes the car and thinks that this house was abandoned 30 years ago. The mansion is surrounded by a dense forest. Going inside, the young man sees an empty corridor. The house is unfurnished from the inside. There are only bare walls, but the house itself is quite clean. Kazura is surprised why the abandoned house is in such good condition. The hero thinks that it is possible to live here. The young man decides to look around, pleased with the current situation. At the end of an empty long corridor, Kazura notices a door. Her location seems strange to the young man. The hero goes to the door and sees a lock on it. He doesn't understand what the room is locked in the mansion. Kazura lightly touches the lock and it crumbles, falling to the floor. The sound of metal is heard. The frightened young man ties one end of the rope to the door handle and gently pulls the rope from the end of the corridor. Kazura is shaking with fear, telling himself that he will succeed. The hero slowly opens the door and an ordinary empty room appears in front of him. After examining it, Kazura assumes that the size of the room is about 6 tatami mats. But as soon as the hero crosses the threshold of the room, it turns into a long, narrow corridor with no end in sight. The walls, floor, and ceiling of this corridor look strange. Kazura turns back in horror and sees all that corridor of the mansion. He's wondering if he should go back. It's amazing and incomprehensible to him how it works. The young man decides to return to the mansion for the bag. The hero sat down and decided to check if his shoelaces were tied. Kazura walks slowly down an unfamiliar corridor, holding onto the wall with his hand. There is a turn ahead. The hero notices something on the floor around the corner. Someone's skeleton appears in front of the young man, wrapped in some kind of old cape. Kazura is shocked by such a find. Sometime later, the hero finds himself on the street. Kazura wants to dial 110, but his phone is out of reach. The young man walks on and looks around. It turned out that the door was leading him to an unfamiliar place. There is a view of the village in front of the Kazura. He sees people doing something on the ground, one-story small houses, mountains can be seen in the distance. The hero is delighted with such a paranormal phenomenon. He's trying to figure out if he's in Europe or America. Kazura waves at the nearest man and addresses him in English, saying that he is a tourist from Japan. A thin man answers him in Japanese. He apologizes and does not understand anything. Kazura guesses that he is in his own country. The hero is a little disappointed. The young man says that he has come for an excursion and asks where the nearest station is located here. The man apologizes again and says he doesn't know what it is. Kazura exclaims in surprise. Gradually, the hero is surrounded by other villagers. One of them asks him if he has come to Nelson-sama. The young man does not understand anything. Judging by the reaction of people, they hear the word station for the first time. Kazura looks at everyone around him in disbelief and does not believe that he really got to Japan and not to another world. A young man notices antique tools and dishes. He pays attention to the appearance of the residents and understands that they have a very low level of development. The villagers look at him in surprise. Kazura tells them that he is a traveling merchant. He holds out his hand and says that as a sign of friendship he will give them salt and medicine. The hero hopes that he will be able to explore this world. Suddenly, the young man hears an unfamiliar female voice. He thinks he's handsome. The voice asks about medicines. The trembling girl opened the door in the house and went out to look at the stranger. With tears in her eyes, she asks if Kazura can give them medicine and save her father's life. One of the men addresses the girl. Her name is Valletta. He says that they will be able to cure the head of the village. The girl is extremely happy about this. Kazura asks then if her father is ill. Valletta tells the young man that she does not have suitable food for her sick father, and she also does not have money for a doctor. The girl says she has almost given up. Kazura clutches the handles of her bag tightly. He's nervous. The hero thinks to himself that he has not yet said what medicines he has with him. The young man asks if he can examine the head of the village. Valletta allows him and thanks him for his help. The girl creaks open the door leading into the house. Valletta sits down next to her father's bed. The man is trembling and very quietly asks about medicines. When Kazura sees him, he realizes that this is no longer a matter of medicine and that he does not have such medicines. The young man puts his hand on the man's forehead. He says the symptoms out loud. The man's eyes are sunken, his gaze does not focus. The girl shudders. Kazura continues to say that the man is shaking all over. He looks up at Valletta and sees her crying. Unable to withstand such pressure, the young man lies that everything is fine and the man can be saved. Valletta tearfully tells her father that everything will be fine. Kazura was able to say that, and now he needs to give medicines. The young man hands her a lot of simple medicines, a jar of syrup and pills. Valletta carefully gives her father medicines. Kneeling in front of the bed, she carefully brings a jar of medicine to his mouth and says that it should also be drunk completely. Smiling, the girl says that she feels better and offers Kazura to stay the night as a thank you for the medicine. The hero agrees and grabs his shirt because he has a pain in his chest. The hero thinks to himself that if Valletta's father dies, he will have to give all his money and beg for forgiveness on his knees. He thanks the girl, and she replies that she will take him to the room. Left alone in the room, the hero walks from side to side. Kazura argues that the girl's father will not be able to cure lipo, which means he will die either tonight or tomorrow. Gradually, the sun set, and night fell on the village. The black sky was dotted with numerous bright stars. Suddenly, Valletta knocked on the door and called Kazura. The hero immediately fell to his knees and began to bow to the ground, while apologizing to the girl. Valletta and her father are standing in the doorway. The girl says that he has recovered. The man introduces himself and apologizes for not being able to greet the hero earlier. His name is Vallon. He is the head of the village. Vallon thanks Kazura for the medicines. Still bowing, Kazura looks at the two of them in disbelief. He says it's absurd. Those drugs couldn't save a dying person, and even in a few hours. A little later, the soup is cooked in a small pot. Vallon says that after drinking the medicine, he recovered surprisingly quickly. Kazura replies that he is no less surprised, because usually the medicine works for several days. The hero thinks to himself that he is most surprised here. Vallon says that it is really an amazing medicine, and asks how he can thank the young man. Kazura says he doesn't need anything. The main thing is that Vallon is healthy now. The hero drinks the soup, which was kindly served to him. In the plate, he notices some bugs floating among vegetables and greens. Valletta says she caught Arcady's bugs. The young man is shocked by this. The girl asks if the young man has already eaten this. She says that in the city, these bugs are top-grade food. Vallon enjoys eating beetles and says they always taste great. Kazura drinks the soup again. His hands are shaking. He says this soup is a bit like lean corn soup. Sometime later, Valletta tells the hero that he will want to rest soon, so she brought him a futon. Kazura thanks her and says that he forgot to give her something right away. He's rummaging through his bag. The hero hands the girl a bag of salt. Valletta can't believe her eyes and says she's never seen salt so white before. The girl looks at the package with interest and says that it is surprisingly so transparent. Kazura does not know how to explain everything to her and says that such a thing was invented in his country. Valeta does not understand what is written on the package and says that, although her father taught her to read and write, she sees such letters for the first time. Privately, Kazura is amazed at how amazing this world is. Suddenly, the girl turns seriously to the hero. He says that the medicines he gave her father are effective, but very expensive. She begs Kazuru to help other residents as well. The girl promises to pay him back someday, and if necessary, he can give her to someone or sell whatever he wants. The hero asks her to stop and raise her head. Her tears embarrass him. Kazura is surprised that there are still patients in the settlement. The girl replies that almost half of the villagers are ill, and almost all mothers have nothing to feed their babies with. The hero did not expect this. The young man understands that if he does not lend a helping hand, people will suffer. Besides, this is the way to Valeta's heart. The hero says that the flag will be raised successfully, so he will save the villagers. Kazura says he doesn't need the money, instead he wants to be allowed to stay here. The girl does not believe his words. She repeats what he said and asks if he is sure of it. The young man says that people's lives are more important than money. Kazura thought to himself that it really looked suspicious no matter how you looked at it. The hero asks the girl to just trust him. From these words, the girl began to cry. She cried so hard that she couldn't say a word. Kazura tries to calm her down. Valeta apologizes to the young man for such a violent reaction. Her whole body is shaking. Kazura says it has been very hard for them all this time. She is already at the limit. The hero resolutely opens the door back to his world. He holds a bag and a flashlight in his hands and says that it's time to save everyone, even if it will be hard. Valeta and Valine are shocked by the opening of the door. Kazura runs down the long corridor back to the mansion. Along the way, he waves at the skeleton lying on the floor and thinks that, first of all, he needs to get there as soon as possible. The wind is blowing along the corridor. The young man gets into the car and thinks that it is about 40 kilometers to the nearest convenience store. In such a wilderness with these problems, there are from 50 to 100 people sick in the village. About half of the villagers are in serious condition. The hero walks around the supermarket with a cart and thinks what to buy for him. He thinks about how much it costs to buy rice and canned food, whether milk powder and water are needed. Kazura is not sure if there is any water in the village at all. As a result, the young man bought 100 kilograms of rice, 20 kilograms of salt, 10 liters of water, 10 cans of canned peaches, 5 kilograms of prunes, 10 cans of baby food, and 400 bottles of Lipo-D. The cashier girl looks at Kazura in surprise and asks if he bought all this in case of an emergency. Out of embarrassment, the hero did not answer her. The headlights at night illuminate the road brightly. The young man says that, as he expected, he did not have time to buy medicines. He is going to distribute the rest to people in serious condition and, for the time being, give the rest of the Lipo-D. Kazura turns back and thinks about how he can carry so much luggage to the village on his own. The hero needs something like a cart, but the hardware store is already closed. Suddenly, Kazura notices something in the dark. There is a small shed on the side of the road, and there is a cart right next to it. Kazura is surprised by this combination of circumstances. The hero understands that if he just takes her away, he will not be different from the thief, but his emergency case requires such actions. In a small package, the young man left money for the cart and wrote an apology on it. Kazura attached the cart to the car and took it away with him. After a while, the hero returned to the mansion. The young man loaded a cart full of food and medicines. Kazura has no time to rest. He needs to hurry to the sick residents who are waiting for him so much. From all that happened, the hero got hungry and now eats prunes. The wind in the long corridor does not stop making noise. A young man pulls a cart. It knocks and makes noise. As Kazura expected, it is very easy to carry things this way. The young man went outside. On a dark night, the road is not visible at all. The cart hit the wheel on a stone that Kazura did not notice. He turned on the flashlight and lit his way. Valeta runs towards the hero. She is breathing heavily from running and calling Kazuru. The young man is surprised that the girl woke up at night. She looks at him and can't believe he's back with a big cart. Kazura says he brought medicine and food from his country. First, we need to roll her to the house. Valeta looks at him and is silent for a while. The hero turns to her and the girl comes to her senses, saying that everything is fine. Valeta stands next to Kazura and helps him carry the cart. She accidentally touches his hand with her own and thanks him for everything. After a while, the heroes finally finished unloading all the things. Kazura has a backache. He thinks it's a muscle spasm. Valeta sighs, sitting next to me, and apologizes for not helping in any way. The young man tells her not to worry about it. He asks the girl if it's too late to go home at night. She agrees, but immediately says that some patients are suffering now. The heroes resolutely go to the aid of the others. Kazura and Valletta came to the house of a man who is also shaking due to illness. Young people helped an elderly woman by giving her medicine. Kazura gave the young mother and her child baby food while Valletta helped the man. The heroes walked all night from one house to another. In another house, Valletta tells an elderly woman in a bad condition to drink a magic medicine that will help her. Kazura carefully hands her the vial. The woman thanks them. Confused by the girl's words, Kazura touches her neck and says that the medicine is not so magical. Valletta is outraged and answers him that she is telling the truth. She thinks for a second. The girl looks at Kazuru smiling and helping everyone and thinks that he is incredible. The girl drinks the medicine and says that it has a pleasant taste. She imagined it to others. Kazura says he likes it too and drinks it from time to time. The hero says that every day he drinks such a medicine from another world. Now that the fatigue is gone, the heroes decided to get down to business and went to the old barn. Inside, they found what they came for. Valletta is holding a huge cooking pot in her hands. She says that you can cook food for the whole village in it at a time. People gathered on a small platform. The heroes cooked porridge for everyone right on the street. A woman came up to Kazura and thanked him for the medicine. Thanks to him, she can now stand on her feet. Not far away, the man says that he has never eaten such delicious porridge. The woman next to her replies that salt has also been added to it. She has a healthy complexion. Kazura thinks that Lipo-D is very effective in this world. He hands the man a bowl. A child runs up to the hero and asks why he is dressed so strangely. Kazura looks at Valletta and thinks that she really stands out. The hero does not know what to answer. Someone is calling the child. The child's mother quickly runs up to him and grabs him. She apologizes to Kazura and runs away. The hero is surprised. The villagers look at the young man with fright, waiting for his reaction to what happened. No one has said a word. There is silence. Valletta is also worried and turns to Kazura. He smiles and asks why everyone is looking at him if he has something on his face. The villagers are surprised. The girl says that he has nothing on his face and asks for more. The villagers became animated and also asked to feed them more. The hero is surprised that everyone exhaled so much relief. He wants to teach them how to cook rice porridge. Sometime later, Valletta and Kazura walk around the village. The hero suggests using unoccupied houses for firewood. The girl says that it will be difficult for the residents. Some houses are empty because no one lives there now because of the war. Kazura asks about the war. The girl tells him that the war between their country Arcadia and Balvale lasted 6 years and ended 4 years ago. The war dragged on. Both boys and girls were called up. Balvale waged wars with other states besides Arcadia. Neighboring countries formed an alliance. After that, Balvale and the Union signed a truce for 8 years. The girl is afraid that if war breaks out again after the end of the world, she may also be called up. Kazura is shocked by this. Valletta changed the subject, seeing that the hero had a suggestion. He says that a long drought is harmful, so he wants to cause rain. The hero knows that during the Second World War, the military caused rain with the help of a bonfire. Now it should also work. The girl says that they have already made an offering to Suipushior, but he did not give rain. She's not sure if it will work out after that. Kazura says that it is possible to try since he knows an old way. In the evening of the same day, people from the village, together with Kazura, built a large bonfire. Everyone in the village brings a tree for a bonfire. Someone is calling the hero. Valletta came up to the hero and asked if she could sit next to him. Kazura agreed. The girl said that the young man has been waiting for it to rain since the bonfire was lit. Kazura is worried. He said he would make it rain, but the hero is not sure if it will, because it was just a baseless statement. The young man looked at Valletta's face full of hope and begged for the rain to come as soon as possible. Without taking her eyes off the fire, the girl asks the hero why he came to the village. Kazura tells her that the village is just not far from his house. Valletta tells him that even if he was here by accident, he saved a lot of people. The hero regretted to himself that the words had slipped out of his mouth. He did not want to say something that contradicted the circumstances of his appearance. He doesn't understand why the girl doesn't try to find out everything from him. Kazura wants to talk to Valletta about the result of the rain call. He turns to her and suddenly, for some reason, falls silent. He looks at the girl sitting in front of him. Kazura can't stop looking at her and her face. The hero forgot what he wanted to talk about. Kazura thinks to himself that this girl is very beautiful. He tells her what he should have said before the rain started to fall. The young man says that the method is not 100%. The hero asks to be forgiven if it doesn't rain. The girl says that Suepushioru has a fickle character, he is the god of water. The girl replies that even if it doesn't rain after his request, then God is not in the mood. Suddenly, a drop of water falls on the hero's face. It's starting to rain. Everyone is shouting that this is Kazura's merit. The hero does not believe that it really started to rain. The next morning, the young people went to the river. Valletta asks what Kazura has brought with him. He says it's left over from what they gave out yesterday. He wants to cool the jar in water and have breakfast with canned peaches. He thinks that breakfast will taste better alone with such a beautiful girl. Mentally, he apologizes to Valen. The hero says that the river is very clean and he would like to provide the village with water. He asks the girl if she knows about the water wheel. Kazura draws it on the ground. I've never seen anything like it. The hero wants to make do with tools from this world but does not know how to make it himself. Valletta says that no matter how difficult it is, they will cope. The young man smiles at her and says that everything is fine. He wants to bring a wheel from his country. Kazura takes a chilled jar of peaches out of the water and offers the girl half. She says she can't eat before him. The hero assures her that he doesn't mind. The girl tastes one piece of peach and suddenly opens her eyes wide. She says that peaches are very sweet. It's the first time she's tasted something so delicious. The young man is pleased with this reaction and offers her his half too. The girl is distraught and says she can't do that. Kazura says that this is her reward for everything and asks her to eat it. Valletta agrees and thanks him for the treat. The hero tells the girl that as soon as she finishes, they return to the village and he immediately engages in a water wheel. Sometime later, Kazura finds out in the store that the wheel will be made for 20 days and it costs 3 million yen. The young man asks if they can make a wheel in a week and offers 5 million in advance and the same amount after. He takes care of the shipping costs. The shopkeeper is surprised. He says that a familiar company will help him. The order will be ready in a week without compromising on quality. Kazura thanks the host. The young man wants to make more gifts for the people from the village. He poisoned himself in a big supermarket. Kazura bought axes, saws, sickles, hoes, pitchforks, shovels, and picks. The girl at the checkout will find out if he is in charge of the cultivation work. The hero says that this is almost true. The store employees are surprised. The hero brought all the purchases on a cart. This completes all the preparations. The villagers started working on a connecting channel for water. Men ask Kazura if such boards and supports are suitable. They address him as Kazura-sama, which the hero doesn't like. Valletta and the other girls came to tell everyone about the break. The girl tells Valletta to go eat with Kazura. She will handle the rest on her own. Valletta is confused. The blushing girl asks Kazura if she can sit next to him. He is glad to see her and asks if the tools were useful to the workers in the field. She says that everyone really liked it. When she picked up one of the tools, she was surprised at how easy it was to use. Kazura opens a can of canned food. The girl says it smells delicious. The hero says that this is sori fish marinated in sauce. Valletta says they sometimes eat fish, but they've never cooked like that. The hero asks if they catch her with fishing rods. Valletta says they do that too. Kazura looks at her. She notices this and asks why he's looking like that. The hero watched her a lot. He says she's healthier and looks better. She says it's because of him. Kazura looks at her in embarrassment. A few days later, the young man brought all the parts of the water wheel and called everyone to the river to install it. All the villagers are very happy about this. By this time, the work on the water channel is almost finished. The villagers dug a long moat. The man says that the water storage has been dug to the end. Thanks to the shovels that Kazura gave, it became very easy to dig. The men of the village are very satisfied. Thanks to the whole system, it is possible to cook food and drink drinking water, as well as use water for agriculture. The water will be distributed and the storage will not overflow. Kazura says that now everyone will assemble the water wheel. The villagers look at the instructions and work together. After an hour, the job was about 80% done. Kazura and Valletta sat down to rest. A crowd came up to them, led by Valen. The girl asks if they have finished digging the canal. Kazura is surprised that all the villagers have come. Valen says that all that remains is to connect the aqueduct to the wheel. Kazura looks at him and is glad that he looks good. The young man says that the wheel is not ready yet and asks to dig holes for the wheel supports and then connect an aqueduct to them. The head of the village asked everyone to get together and finish the wheel so that there would be no more problems with water in the village. Everyone went back to work. Kazura and Valletta finished assembling the wheel with the villagers. Valine and his team have finished making the supports for the wheel. A large crowd of people took the wheel to fix it on the supports. Before starting the water, you need to install the wheel correctly. The men begin to connect the river to the canal. Someone is shouting not to connect the wheel. Everyone does their job. The wheel starts to spin. A huge wheel rotates, feeding water into the canal. All the residents are mesmerized by this, especially Valletta. Everyone is amazed at how the mechanism works. The water rises high. Children climb near the wheel and the water. Residents are running in the direction of the new water flow. Suddenly, someone grabs Kazuru's hand and calls him. Valletta holds the young man's hand with both hands and invites him to run after the current of the water. She smiles. He tells the girl that it's a long way to run to the village, but she pulls his hand and doesn't listen. Kazura doesn't know what to do. Valen calls them to put away their tools, but then smiles. In this world, a young man and a beautiful girl are running along the river. Clear water runs along the river and the bright sun is reflected in it. Kazura is lying on the ground and breathing heavily. He was tired of running. Valletta hands him the water. The young man thanks the girl. After a glass of water, Kazura feels better. Valletta says it's time for them to go back, because lunch is coming soon. The young man wants to help with the cooking. Kazura is standing on the ground with a shovel and working. His whole face is covered with dirt. Valletta, laughing merrily, wipes it off. The young man scratches the back of his head in confusion. He says he's really sorry and apologizes. Kazura says they forgot about the tools. Valen tells him that everything is fine. Valletta carries the ready-made food and offers to have lunch. The hero says that the food looks delicious and notices Arcadie's bugs. The girl caught 6 pieces. In this world, Acadian beetles are expensive country food. Kazura thinks there's a lot on the table this time. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door and Valletta goes to open it. Through the crack, she sees who has come. A young man in uniform is standing on the threshold. He looks stern. The girl tells her father that this is Isaac, San, Nelson-sama's messenger. Valen abruptly gets up from the floor. Valletta, in a panic, grabs Kazura by the hand and takes him to a far room, apologizing at the same time. The young man doesn't understand anything. The hero asks who Nelson is. The girl replies that he is an aristocrat assigned by the royal family to manage these lands. Kazura is surprised by this. Valletta says they're paying him a portion of the harvest. During a drought, based on the damage, he regulates the amount to be paid. The hero says that Nelson is thinking about things in the villages. The girl is worried and asks Kazura to stay in the room until Nelson leaves. The young man agrees. Valletta leaves and leaves the hero alone in the room. He looks at his clothes and thinks he looks suspicious in them. He wonders what the noble Nelson looks like. The action continues at night in an unknown building. Isaac knocks on the door and announces his return from Gracia. The man inside tells him to come in. A young man enters the room and greets Nelson. He reports that the situation in the village of Gracia is not what Nelson expected. Isaac puts a piece of paper on the table and pushes it closer to Nelson. There are also many different documents and papers on the table. The young man reports that there is nothing to worry about. Nelson looks at the report carefully and is surprised. Isaac reports that the damage in the fields is serious. You will have to accept payment in wood. But after the construction of the water canal, the village will no longer have to worry about water shortages. Nelson asks if the young man is sure that there was water in the village. Isaac says the channel is connected to the vault. The man looks at Isaac seriously and says that this is impossible. Nelson asks him what is the distance from the river to the village and what is the landscape there. Nelson wants to explain to the young man why this is impossible. He unfolds the map and tells Isaac to study the geography of the lands better. It takes an adult 30 minutes to walk from Gracia to the river. The shortage of labor occurred due to famine and war. People do not have tools. It hasn't rained for about a month. But the river is still too low to feed the canal with water. If you connect the channel upstream, there will be hills on the way. Isaac and Nelson look at the map. The young man does not understand where the water came from in the village. Nelson says that this is possible if you build a canal bypassing the hills, but this is unrealistic. Isaac apologizes and says that he did not find out about the water source. The man says that the availability of water in the village is good news. He asks the young man how he is doing with Risa. Isaac replies that they don't have that kind of relationship. Nelson is surprised by his answer. He says that with such an attitude, his daughter won't even look at him. The action continues in the village of Crisea. Kazura asks if it's not a lot to pay taxes every 2-3 months. Valletta says that's not the case. Nelson sets the dimensions and helps solve the problems of the village. Kazura says Nelson is a good lord. The girl says that because of the tax cuts they want to support Nelson and pay more. The girl thinks that Nelson does not have enough money to pay the tax to the royal family. Valletta says that 2/10 of the field is devoted to potatoes, except for this part, the rest was destroyed by drought. Kazura asks what kind of fertilizer the residents use. The girl does not understand what this word means. Valletta says that they scatter the crushed bones of Kafuku when they hunt in the mountains and ask God for a harvest. Kazura asks what else they are doing. The girl says that it was necessary to scatter the meat. The young man says that in order to grow good crops, you must first make the soil healthy. The girl doesn't understand. Kazura says that they will fertilize the soil with forest humus from leaves, and then God will be delighted, as the soil will become healthier. Valen suggests that everyone collect more humus together. Later, in the forest, the villagers watch with delight and interest as Kazura collects humus. A young man digs the topsoil and collects humus. He thinks he looks terrible. The villagers are delighted. The hero holds humus in his palm. He tells people to collect it, mix it with the earth, and scatter it around the field. He promises that the harvest will increase. All the villagers trust Kazura's words. The young man says that he will return to his country and find another cart and fertilizers. He asks her to pass on her words. Someone is watching the heroes from behind the bushes. 2 children are hiding in the bushes, running from one to the other. They keep an eye on Kazura and follow him. The girl tells Colt that this is a bad idea, because they were forbidden to go after the Kasura. Colt replies to Muir that they are far away from him and he will not notice them. The children notice a young man entering the forest. The girl is afraid that Kazura will find out, but together with the boy, they run forward. The children run out of hiding, but they only see the forest. The girl says that Kazura is a glacier, otherwise he would have disappeared. Colt says Kazura looks like an ordinary older brother. Colt asks the girl if she doesn't think so herself. Mir tells him to get back to the others quickly. Meanwhile, Kazura returned back to the mansion. The hero is going to go to the hardware store and has already made a large shopping list. In the store, a young man is shown different types of fertilizer for potatoes. He chooses the best. Kazura takes fertilizers, and the consultant asks him how many bags he needs. The hero says he buys everything he has. The consultant says that in total, there will be more than 400 kilograms, and for every 4 macaws you need 30 kilogram. Kazura is thinking how he can get all this to the village. A young man asks to rent him a truck and help with loading. He asks the seller where the carts are in the store. Sometime later, near the mansion, Kazura inspects his new sturdy and comfortable, but very expensive cart. The hero remembers a barn he was passing by and where he found an old cart. The new cart is much more convenient because it folds up. The young man left the vegetables near the old barn and wrote a note. He tried one himself and admired its taste. Kazura has loaded 300 kidream and is now wondering if the tatami will hold up. Already in the tunnel, the hero sits down next to the skeleton and leaves something for him. A young man left a jar of treats near the skeleton, thus apologizing. Returning to the village, Kazura notices that the residents are diligently mining humus in the forest. The hero is glad that everything is going well. Kazura passes by the residents. Everyone is happy to see him. Valletta asks him what he has brought. The hero replies that it is a fertilizer, like humus. The girl says he has a strange smell. She doesn't know how to read the word. The hero says that this is manure, which is made in his country from chicken droppings. The girl is surprised that fertilizers are bird droppings. Valletta asks if it should be scattered on the ground. The hero replies that yes. Kazura assures her that God will use humus and manure to make the soil fertile. The girl thanks him, and the hero replies that this is gratitude for the reception. The villagers work on the land. Everyone is scattering the humus and fertilizers that Kazura brought. Valletta got her face and hand dirty in the ground. She diligently carries out the orders of the hero. The sun is at its zenith. Kazura looks at the field and asks if it is the last one. He realizes that there is not enough fertilizer and says he will bring more. The residents thank him. Valen sniffs his clothes. Residents note that fertilizers smell bad. The young man agrees with them and takes something out of the bag. It's evening outside. Valletta is going to swim. She is holding a piece of white soap in her hands. The girl examines him. Earlier, Kazura distributed soap to a resident. Valletta said that this soap is softer than in the city and smells different. It must be very expensive. Kazura says that after it, the skin will smell nice. The girl douses herself with water and gently rubs herself with soap. It foams a lot. Valletta opens her eyes wide in surprise. She says the soap really smells good. The unpleasant smell of fertilizers is quickly washed off. Valletta knocks over a basin of hot water. She's sitting in the middle of the trees. The sound of water is heard. The girl wipes her hair and remembers Kazura, who diligently dripped earth and worked in the field, all soiled. She looks at the soap in her hands. Valletta brings a piece of soap to her face and inhales its pleasant smell. Her cheeks are still blushing and she's smiling. After bathing, Valletta feels cheerful. Kazura says that the soap is really good. It is much better to wash with it than with ordinary water. Kazura suggests that the girl and Valen build a large bath for everyone, make a public bathhouse. Valletta says that everyone would be happy to have a large tank of hot water. Valen notes that the bathroom, a luxury item, is only available to nobles. It cannot be built without permission. Kazura worries that installing a water wheel may be illegal. Somewhere far away, at this time, Isaac hides around the corner and looks at the garden. He is embarrassed to give a bouquet to a girl in the garden. Meanwhile, in the village, Valletta asks if everything is okay. The girl worries that Nelson will find out about the appearance of a water channel because the villagers could not make a wheel. Valletta asks Kazura to teach her. The hero is embarrassed and says that it would be too presumptuous on his part. The young man asks the girl if she wants to study with him. Valletta is very happy with the offer. She thanks the hero and agrees. The hero remembers that Valletta used to want to leave the village to learn something new. Kazura looks at her and sees how pleased she is with his offer. The hero offers the girl to make a water wheel together with everyone. Kazura thinks he has already brought nails from Japan. Next time he wants to make them out of bronze. The young man suggests that Valletta study in the evenings after they finish fertilizing the fields. The girl asks him to take care of her. The sun is slowly sinking behind the mountain line. Night is approaching and the end of the working day in the village. The hero's back ached. He remembers how he loaded and transported fertilizers on a cart alone. The hero says out loud that he wants to go for a massage. The father tells Valletta to take Kazura to the house and give him a massage. The young man says he doesn't want to. The girl runs up to the hero and tells him not to overexert himself if he is tired. Kazura looks at their dirty hands and suggests that they wash first. Sometime later, Kazura finds a book in her bag. Valletta looks at her with interest. The hero says that he took the books to study, but put this one down by mistake. The girl does not understand what kind of pictures are in the book, and says that the parchment is very thin. Kazura tells her that these are photographs, pictures that capture reality. He explains to her what kind of material the pages in the magazine are made of. Valletta is flipping through a magazine. The hero asks her what she wants to learn. She says that this is law, history, and theology. They study it in the capital. Kazura says that he will not be able to teach her this, because in his country, they teach differently. The girl asks the hero to teach her the writing of his country. She wants to read that magazine about the interior. The young man in response asks her to teach him writing and the alphabet of Arcadia. The hero is smiling. Kazura says she can't read their alphabet. He suggests starting now, but the girl interrupts him. Valletta starts giving the young man a massage. She asks if he likes it, and he replies that he is pleased. The girl asks the hero to relax, and says that building a water wheel will be difficult. Kazura says they need more nails. The hero argues that they don't have so many nails and need to get more in the city. He turns around and asks if there is a city nearby. Valletta says that 2 days from here there is the town of Hysteria, the largest in Nelson's domain. The girl is going to go to the city with the villagers. Kazura also wants to go to the city. Sometime later, Kazura is ready to go into Hysteria. Valletta gave him Valen's clothes, and now there will be no problems. Kazura and Valletta will go to the city with Lodur, his wife Tiana, and daughter Muir. They are glad to have such a company. The hero says that Muir looks like her mother, she only has teeth from Lodor. Everyone is ready and can now hit the road. The group moved out on the road. Kazura asks if the trip is dangerous, since everyone took their weapons with them. Valletta says that sometimes wild animals or bandits can attack. She is not good with a sword, but her father teaches her. Only Lodor has real combat experience. Kazura says he can handle a piggy boar. The girl replies that she will leave the piglet to him. A group of people walked all day. Kazura treated Muir to sweets. They found a small house. The hero wiped his feet. In the evening, some went hunting. In the morning, the group set off again. Soon the road turned to stone underfoot. The villagers and Kazura arrived in the town of Hysteria. After passing through a large gate, the heroes found themselves on a street packed with people. The young man looks at the city with delight. Kazura thinks that the city is exactly the same as in the movies about the Middle Ages. Walls are being built around the whole city. Most likely, they began to be built before the war. The main street is full of people. Numerous retail shops serve customers. In one of the trading shops, Kazura and Valletta offer the buyer to sell firewood for 80 R. The man says it's too expensive. He can only give 50 RR. Valletta says they will go to another place. The man asks her to wait and offers 55 RR. Valletta says she can only reduce it to 70 R. A man cannot buy more than 62 R. The girl says she will try somewhere else. The man says to come to him if there is no buyer. One of the companions says that Valletta traded well. The girl replies that she was very worried because she doubted. Kazura thinks she did a great job. Loder and Tiana are going to go and sell firewood. The woman wants to sell animal skins too. Someone is pulling Kazura's sleeve. Muir holds the young man by the sleeve and asks his father for permission to go with him. Kazura says it's not difficult for him to take her with him. Lodor gives permission and asks the hero to look after his daughter. Tiana tells her to obey Kazuru. The girl is glad. Valletta tells the hero that she will go with the others to sell Arcadian beetles and firewood elsewhere. Meanwhile, there are many residents of the city and guests from other places on the street. They all crowd around the shops. Kazura tells Muir that Valletta is trading well. She sold the firewood in the first place. The hero and the girls went to get nails, and Valletta went to sell bugs. The heroes find the right store. It looks like a universal one. Kazura comes inside and says he has come to trade. There are many shelves with various goods inside the store. A young man and a girl look around. An elderly woman comes out to them. Kazura takes something out of her bag and says she wants to sell it. The woman replies that trinkets are poorly bought. The hero says that this is an ocarina musical instrument. Kazura shows you how to use it. The woman is surprised and says that she has a bad memory. Muir says the melody was beautiful. The woman asks how much he wants for the instrument. Kazura gets lost and offers her 20 R for 2 pieces. The buyer agrees. The hero realizes that he does not have enough money. He holds out a piece of rose quartz. The woman immediately pays attention. Kazura asks how much she will buy it for. The woman offers 200 R. The hero is shocked. She sees this and offers 2000 R. Kazura doesn't believe her and asks again. Suddenly, Muir tells him that she found a stone here for 1200 R. The hero realizes that he was going to be deceived. Kazura says that he will sell the stone for 2500 R. If she does not buy it, then he will sell it elsewhere. He thanks Muir, and he thinks that this will be the price for the lesson. The hero puts a 100 R silver coin in the girl's hands. She says she's never seen one like it. Kazura says he has a request for a woman. She replies that she won't tell anyone anything and will buy the product at a fair price next time. The woman wants to buy more and promises not to cheat. Kazura says he doesn't have any more. It would be stupid to sell the same thing. The woman says he's not that stupid. Suddenly, she sharply points at him with her hand and says that he is absolutely defenseless. Kazura tensed up. The woman says that if he had gone to another store with such goods, he would have been suspected of theft and the guards would have been called. The woman points to Muir and says she is very persistent. The silver coins she gave are genuine. The exhausted young man says he will remember her words. The heroes leave the store. Meanwhile, a girl is walking quickly down a narrow alley. She clicks her heels on the road, her dress fluttering in the wind. A beautiful young lady whispers to her maid that she does not even want to think about marrying a merchant, calling him stubborn. The maid tells a girl named Lisa that she should give up marriage if she doesn't like it so much. Lisa replies to Isla that then there may be rumors that she is not indifferent to Isaac. She remembers how he gave her a bouquet. Lisa says that her father probably wants to marry her off to him, and so stupid merchants and other men give her gifts. The girl says she is tired and wants to sell gifts to go shopping. The maid does not have time to finish as she collides with someone on the road. Kazura is sitting on the ground in front of her. He holds his chest and says he's in quite a lot of pain. Isla is in a hurry to apologize, and says that she did not look around. She looks at the hero in horror. Passers-by also pay attention. Lisa apologizes for her maid to Kazura and asks if he is okay. The young man says that everything is fine with him and thinks that Lisa is incredibly beautiful. The girl says that his things are scattered on the ground and tells Isla to help collect them. Kazura is afraid that they will find his things at the bottom of the bag. Suddenly, Lisa picks up a lighter and asks what it is. The young man is horrified and says that this is also his thing. He doesn't have time to stop her. The girl flicks a lighter and a flame appears in front of her. Lisa throws the lighter away from her in horror and screams. The guards immediately run up to her and ask what happened. One of the guards twisted Kazura's hands behind his back and ordered him not to move. The hero is shocked by what happened. The guard twisted Kazura's hands behind his back. The young man says he didn't do anything. The crowd is looking at them. Lodor approaches them and asks what the hero has done. The guard asks who Kazura is Lodoru. The guard says that the young man is dangerous for Lisa, Nelson's daughter. He's going to take the hero to the post. Kazura is terrified. Lisa says the hero didn't hurt her. Kazura and Lodor apologize. The guard is going to hit the hero. Lisa orders him to be released. The disgruntled guard obeys the order and releases Kazura. Lodor apologizes to Lisa again. The girl looks at the ground and tries to find a lighter. He looks around but finds nothing. The characters blend into the crowd and walk away from Lisa. Suddenly, Muir turns to Kazura. She's holding something in her hands. The girl puts a lighter on the hero's hand, which she hid. Kazura praises her and pats her on the head. She saved everyone. In the crowd, the heroes notice Valletta. The young man says that he bought everything he needed and tells about what happened. After a while, the group returned to the village. They bought a lot of things, including digging chickens. Valletta says she will sew clothes for Kazura as a thank you for her help. The hero accepts her offer. He doesn't want to stand out in this world. Valen meets the young people. He thanks Kazura for his help on the journey and calls everyone into the house. There is already a ready-made dinner in the house. The villagers cooked fried fish and rice porridge. On the road, the heroes ate only canned food. Tiana notices that the hero's legs are bandaged. The young man says that he has rubbed calluses because he is not used to walking so much. An excited Valletta approaches Kazura and asks if she can wash his feet. She has a basin of water in her hands. The hero says he can handle it on his own. The girl asks if he is tired after the journey and sits him down. Valletta gently washes the young man's feet in a small basin. She looks at him sheepishly. The girl wants to bandage Kazura's legs, but he refuses. Valletta persuades him. Everyone else is looking at them and whispering. After the procedure, everyone is ready to start dinner. A large crowd is in one room. Kazura is enjoying her meal. Valen asks if the hero enjoyed his journey into Hysteria. The hero recalls their entire journey and replies that he really liked it. It was impressive and unusual. Lodor says that they were able to catch Almar, thanks to Kazura. They didn't expect anything less from him. The man says that then they sold the animal's skin and bought 2 birds. Everyone thanks the young man. Kazura says he met Lisa. She is beautiful, smart, and kind. The girl is great with a sword. The hero is delighted with Lisa. Muir says Kazura sold something. The girl is happy about it. Muir says that the hero sold the gem for 2,000 R. Everyone is surprised. People keep talking over dinner. The next morning, the hero found a grown potato. It has grown big thanks to fertilizers. The potatoes ripened in a few days. Valletta is glad that fertilizers helped save the dry field. The elderly woman says that thanks to the amazing things and food from the country of Kazura, everyone worked without a break for several days. Due to the instructions of the hero, the water wheel is almost ready. Because of the food, people became less tired. Valletta says she's not tired from the road either. Kazura recalls how Lipo D affected Muir. He thinks that things from Japan have a special effect. The hero thought about it, the girl called him. The young man suggested going to look at the water wheel. The action continues at Nelson's estate. A man and his daughter Lisa are sitting at a table and eating. Nelson says that a lot of men are courting her and it's time for her to choose a husband. The girl replies that she hasn't thought about it yet. The man says that she does not need to hurry, she will definitely like someone later. Lisa's mother says to choose her husband carefully. She believes that family is important and a husband should be reliable. Lisa agrees with her. Nelson agrees with Zirconium and says that he will accept even a commoner and teach him everything. In her room, Lisa is angry and doesn't know what to do. The girl is furious. The girl wants a luxurious life. She says that my father hinted at Isaac, my mother wants to choose a husband herself. The girl wants to decide for herself. There was a knock on the door. Lisa cleaned herself up and asked who was behind the door. The maid, Isla, came into the room. She asks for forgiveness and doesn't know what to do. Lisa tells her to calm down. Isla says she found a piece of jewelry in her pocket that belongs to the man she ran into. Lisa had never seen anything like it. Meanwhile, Nelson and Zirconium are discussing the construction of a fortress. They want to finish before the truce ends. The woman says that a fortress is necessary in the war. There are enough people in the city to build it. Zirconium says there is not enough food in the country because they have prioritized military training. The man says that hunger could not be predicted. The woman regrets that she did not think about everything and jokes that it's time for Glacier to appear and save them from starvation. Nelson says that this time he has not angered the peasants and their house will be fine. Zirconium asks how many people the fort will provide with food. The man answers, 50 to 100 people. He wants to increase the emergency reserve. Nelson says Isaac was discouraged by the report because he made a mistake in his calculations. The woman says he has a stressful job. Zirconia says they won't lose with the fort, he can leave the rest to her. Nelson thanks his wife and says that she is a real shield of Arcadia. The woman says she couldn't have done it alone. Nelson is a real defender. The man asks if they sent Isaac to check on Grisea. The woman asks her husband about the village. At this time Lisa and Isla do not know what to do. Lisa realizes that the unusual piece of jewelry belongs to that person. Zirconia tells her husband that Glacier will return someday. Meanwhile, in the village, Grisea, Kazura, and Valletta go to see how the work with the water wheel is progressing. Kazura pours herbal tea into a mug. Valletta tastes it and is surprised at how delicious it is. The hero is glad that Valen and Valletta liked it. The girl looks at a magazine and talks about plants. Kazura wants to try to grow something. Sometime later, Kazura goes to the store. The consultant recognizes him. A young man wants to buy plant seeds and seedlings. The hero wants to conduct an experiment. The consultant says that he can immediately pack the goods in a large batch. But this time, Kazura wants to buy 2-3 pots. The hero enters the tunnel with packages from the store. While he was there, the young man decided to buy more souvenirs for the villagers. Kazura finally found time to bury the skeleton that was lying in the tunnel. He apologizes to him for putting it off for a long time. The hero puts a bottle of alcohol on the grave because he does not have a tombstone. After the prayer, Kazura goes to the village. When the young man leaves, a boy looks out from behind a tree. The child does not believe that Kazura just came out of the forest and believes that he is a glacier. Corsi wanted to make sure for himself, but he didn't see anything. The villagers do not want Kazura to find out that they have known for a long time that he is a glacier because they are afraid that he will leave and not return. The child knows the old legend. Once upon a time, Arcadia was struck by a severe drought and a terrible famine began. When the Lord took away all the remaining food from the people, a strangely dressed man appeared in the village. He shared food with the residents and saved many from death. His food increased the strength and endurance of the inhabitants. The man disappeared, but soon returned with the promised food. But then a greedy lord and his servants came and grabbed that man. They put a rope around his neck, confiscated a cart with supplies, and ordered him to take it to where he took it all. The man was saddened, and as soon as the rope was removed, he ran. The man skillfully dodged the blows of the lord's sword, and ran until he reached the forest on the outskirts of the village. Suddenly he disappeared and never came back. Later, the lord and all his servants became very ill. When the lord died, it began to rain and the drought ended. The suffering of the village has stopped. It was rumored that the man was the god of benevolence and harvest. The child remembers the legend and thinks that it says nothing about the disappearance of Greyshore if his identity is revealed. Corsi thinks that this is the same forest from the legend, but no matter how hard he tries, he is constantly brought back to the entrance to the forest. The child runs home. Meanwhile, Valletta and Kazura are planting plants. The girl puts mint in fertilizers and leaves the Simbopogon as it is. The young man is reading the instructions. They don't have many seeds that can be planted in the summer. Valletta reads that rosemary and melissa can be planted in the cold shade in summer. Kazura is surprised that the girl already reads Japanese so well. She replies that she has a lot of fun, so she remembers everything she reads. The hero says that the girl has a very good memory. She replies that she studied even late at night. Kazura says she seems to have great motivation. Young people are looking for shade to plant plants. Valletta says, smiling, that these are a lot of fun to do. Kazura agrees with her. Later, at lunch, Valen tastes sake, which was brought to him as a gift by a young man. Kazura bought 2 bottles, and he left one as an offering at the grave. Valen asks for more, but Valletta won't let him drink much. Kazura asks if alcohol is often drunk in the village. Valen says that they bought a whitish drink at festivals and drank together. A few days later, Kazura put on clothes made for him, he likes them. Valletta says that arugula sprouts have already appeared. The hero is thinking about whether to change fertilizers. The young man says that while the herbs are growing well and wants to take care of the sprouts. The girl says that everyone should have returned by now. Residents will assemble a new water wheel with their own hands. The girl is worried. She says that if it doesn't spin, they will think about what to do and drink hibiscus tea with honey. Valletta says that the wheel will definitely spin, because the villagers diligently created details for it, especially since the wheel was designed by Kazura. The hero says that Valletta checked the drawing, so everything is fine. The girl is embarrassed by his words. The girl looks at the water wheel. Kazura tells everyone that they will now make a new wheel. Everyone is working and helping each other in any way they can. Residents removed the old wheel. Kazura says it needs to be dried because it's dangerous to move it wet. The young man says that just wiping the wheel is not enough. It needs to be dried in the sun from all sides. The hero says that this time the drought helps them. Valletta agrees with him and thinks that the village has revived with the arrival of Kazura. The girl looks attentively at the young man. She doesn't believe he's really a Gracie. Kazura really protects the village, but he doesn't look like the god she imagined. The girl wants to ask why the young man came to their village. Valletta does not understand why God has returned, because their ancestors treated him terribly. The girl thinks that Kazura answered strangely, as if he just lives nearby. She is happy when the hero is in the village, but they don't understand anything because Kazura doesn't look like a god. Valletta thinks that if Kazura is not a Glacier, that he is just an ordinary person who came from some other world. The girl is shocked. The young man notices her gaze on him and asks what happened. The girl did not expect his question. Valletta is worried and asks the hero if he is human. Kazura hesitates with an answer, but then replies that yes. The girl asks in shock that he is, after all, not a human being. You can see the fright on her face. Kazura is surprised by her reaction. He says that he is a human being and is no different from others. The girl doesn't believe him. Valletta says she thinks Kazura is a Glacier. She says everyone in the village believes it. The young man guesses what she means. Kazura says he has heard of Swepsior before. He understands that gray means benevolence and harvest. Kazura says it's a misunderstanding. Valletta says he looks very much like a legend. The girl says that there was a man who looked like him. Kazura interrupts her and says she can't live that long. He wants to correct this misunderstanding, but the girl asks him to behave as usual. Because everyone thinks he's a god, the girl wants people to think that the legend is repeating itself. She is afraid that he will be asked for an explanation and rumors may reach the nobles. Kazura understands what she is talking about. He thinks that since he is considered a god, then he will be like that. The hero says that he counts on Valletta's support if something goes wrong. For Valletta, Kazuru is like a bright light. It was as if she was standing behind him in the dark, but he suddenly began to shine dazzlingly bright. The girl looks at the young man. He holds out his hand to her. Valletta reaches out to him and to the light coming from him. She smiles and tells him to rely on her for following and support. She learned the Anglicisms. Valletta puts her hand on Kazura's arm. The young man suggests that she go and help the others with the assembly. The joyful girl agrees. The villagers, together with Kazura and Valletta, assembled a new water wheel. The hero says that it will be good if everything works. The girl removes the board. The wheel starts spinning and water is pouring. The hero looks at the construction. Valletta asks him what he's thinking. The hero asks her if she was worried. Kazura thinks that the water flow is less than that of the previous wheel. The water should accumulate in the channel. He asks the residents if they are returning to the village because he wants to start dismantling the old wheel. The men say that this does not need to be done and just lift the wheel. The hero is shocked because the wheel weighs about 400 kilograms. Valletta calls the young man to come back. Kazura briefly imagined the girl crushing an apple with her hand. His gaze made her feel embarrassed. The heroes went to the village. The next morning, Kazura and Valletta went to the forest. The girl wants to visit Japan. The hero was talking about it last night, and she wanted to go with him. To begin with, the hero wants to go to a clothing and shoe store to buy them for Valletta. She apologizes for forcing him to spend money and offers to sell bugs there. The hero thinks it's a bad idea. The young man says that there are his marks in the forest so as not to lose his way. The legend says that if you enter the forest, you will find yourself at the entrance, but then he would not be able to return. Kazura tells the girl that he made a mark on the tree and they are not far away. Suddenly he notices that Valletta is not with him. The girl is not around. The hero does not understand where she went, they just talked. He thinks that everything turned out to be like in the legend. Valletta stands alone in the middle of the forest. She remembers that Kazura was right in front of her and then disappeared. Suddenly, he calls her from behind. The hero is glad that the girl was found. Valletta asks him why he was behind her. He says he doesn't know. When he remembered the legend, he ran back. The girl was upset. She says that if everything is as in the legend, then she will not be able to pass through the forest. Kazura came up with a new way. The hero took her by the hand and says that this way they will be able to pass through the forest. He suggests she try again. The heroes have come to the right place again. Valletta threw a stone and it passed. She clung to Kazura and they walked forward. Near the mark, something shook Kazura. The hero saw again that the girl had disappeared. He doesn't understand what's going on. Kazura returns to the girl. She was very upset because she wanted to see Japan. She apologizes for her egotism. The hero says that this is not the case. The young man is sure that there is another way. He sees how upset she is. The girl asks him for a favor. The hero is ready to do it. Valletta asks him to bring her canned peaches. The hero is surprised by this. He says he will buy them quickly and will return to her soon. He asks her to wait at home. The girl accompanies the hero. She says she needs to pull herself together before Kazura arrives. She should try her best. A young man stands in front of the entrance to the tunnel. He looks at the grave and realizes that it was the previous glacier centuries ago. He was wounded by a sword and exhausted. He did not manage to get back. Kazura reasons that the man must have also come through the door and he is his ancestor. Whether other relatives knew about this door or not, the hero decided to just ask his father. A few days later, Valletta sits and reads Kazura's book at night. Before going to bed, she goes to drink water. The girl looks into Kazura's room and does not find him. She wonders if it's cold outside. She opens the door and confronts the hero. He's worried that she's hurt, but it's okay. Kazura asks why she is not sleeping. The girl replies that she went for a drink and did not find him in the room. He always gets up early. The young man says he was worried about her. He couldn't sleep and went to look at the stars. Kazura and Valletta look at the star-studded sky. Shooting stars are visible in the sky. The hero asks if the girl has been looking at the stars for a long time. The young man says that he sees this for the first time, because the sky in Japan is dirty because of the gases. He really likes this clear sky. The girl looks at the hero. Valletta says it would be great if he could stay here forever. She really hopes so. The girl says that he can look at the stars every day and breathe clean air. Kazura likes the atmosphere in this village. He's thinking about staying here forever. The next morning, Kazura and Valletta feed the birds with mixed feed from Japan. The hero wants the chickens to lay eggs. The girl hopes that breeding birds will bring income to the village. Kazura thinks Valletta is developing very fast. He offers her to buy books on poultry farming. The heroes notice the crowd ahead. The hero notes that there are guests in the village. As soon as everyone notices Kazuru, the noise subsides. The girl asks what happened. A young guy tells her that an army of hysteria is marching towards the village. There are about 100 of them. Kazura says she'll just be in her room. The residents do not want Kazura to be taken away, as in the legend, and ask the headman to open an armory. Valen says it's stupid to fight the army. Residents say that Gracier saved them again. If the mistake is repeated now, he will not forgive them anymore. Valen understands that if they go with guns, the residents may get hurt. Valletta says that if the army is hostile, then they must take up arms. The residents are glad that she thinks so too. She says they will only do this as a last resort. They don't need to fight the army to protect Glacier. The residents are confused. The girl says that they need to try to do it differently, especially since they don't even know exactly why the army came. The man says that the headman should also meet with the chief. Valletta thinks that since they announced their arrival in advance, they don't want to capture Kazura, but everyone in the village is afraid of it. Meanwhile, Kazura is packing up her things. The girl comes into the room. The hero says that he will hide in Japan for a while. The young man asks what the army's purpose is. The girl replies that, most likely, training or checking. The hero will be able to return soon. Kazura was afraid that it was because of the collision with Lisa. Everyone should hide his tools. Valletta has already done it. The hero leaves. Meanwhile, the army led by Isaac arrived in Gracia. His partner says their squad is well placed. The dark-haired young man says that it was difficult to accompany Zirconium. She does very hard training. Isaac is jealous. Zirconium conducted heavy training sessions, after which it was impossible to move the next day. Isaac says it's good to have good military training. All the soldiers here are nobles without servants, so they are slowly setting up camp. Isaac says he is going to visit the village and leaves the command to Havel. Havel asks for permission to replenish the water supply. In the village, Isaac asks permission from Valen and Valletta to use the village canal. Valen gives permission. Because of the shape and the rich weapons on his belt, the villagers immediately understood Isaac's position. He wants to quickly explore the village. In the village, Isaac sees huge potato leaves. He asks what helped them grow up so much. Valletta says they mixed humus from the forest with the soil in the field. The young commander says that this is expected from the village of legend, and says that the harvest will be good. Isaac asks to tell him more about the channel. Judging by the location of the river, this is impossible. He asks how they did it. Valen says that Valletta invented the water wheel and the water flows continuously. He wants to take Isaac to the wheel. When Isaac saw the wheel, he exclaimed. He says that the wheel is beautiful, and the hero is surprised that the water is rising high. Isaac asks if they have any records on the wheel assembly. Valletta says they did the details in the process and there are no records left. The young man asks to explain how the wheel works and how to make it in simple words. The girl explains to the hero how everything is tripled. After a while, Isaac says goodbye to Valen and tells him to get ready for the next tax collection. The hero leaves the village. Isaac sees that the situation in the village has improved. But he has doubts about the water wheel. People without academic education would not be able to invent such a thing. The hero is being spied on by a child standing behind a tree. Isaac notices him, smiles and waves at him. Corsi says that judging by the armor, Isaac has a high status. The young man suggests that the child go to see the army, but first ask his parents for time off. Isaac wants to ask the child something. Fraudulently, he asks the child the name of the one who invented the water wheel. The unsuspecting child says that the man's name is Kazura. Isaac is amazed. The young man realizes that he was lied to in the village. He wants to talk to this Kazura and asks to take him to him. Corsi says that Kazura returned to the divine world for a short time and is now gone. Isaac doesn't believe him. Corsi can show him. The child points to the forest and says that it is strange that Isaac does not know, because he has been to their village many times. Isaac says this is the forest where Glacier came from. Corsi says it turns out he knew about it. Isaac, horrified, asks him if Kazura entered the forest. Corsi understood what Isaac meant. The frightened child quickly runs home, away from Isaac. The young man is left alone in the middle of the village. The wind rose, blowing and lifting the leaves into the air. The action begins in Kazura's parental home. A young man and his parents are having lunch. The hero says that homemade rice is the most delicious. Kazura is eating non-stop. He says that after hard work he can't stop. The hero is thinking about Valletta. The young man is about to leave. The hero's father gives him a large suitcase and says that he put things useful to him there. Kazura asks her father about the door with a lock in the mansion. The hero's father does not know that there is such a place there. The young man is surprised. Father asks Kazura to call them more often because they are worried. The hero leaves and wonders if Grisey's village is okay. Sometime later, in the village, several soldiers are watching the people from hiding. Two people are walking in a field along the canal. Kazura asks Valletta if the soldiers have left. The girl says that part of the wheel axle was worn out. The hero agrees with her and offers to replace her. Suddenly, Isaac and the soldiers approach the heroes. He demands an explanation from Kazura and says that he is not a villager. The hero is surprised by their appearance. He closes Valletta and does not understand when his existence was revealed. Kazura understands that the situation needs to be settled in order to avoid problems. Valletta tries to justify herself, but Isaac doesn't listen to her. The hero is thinking how to talk to young Isaac. Kazura says he is a traveling merchant. He walked nearby and then found a village and stayed for a while. Isaac does not believe him and asks what country he is from. The hero realized that it was not easy to deceive him. He says that he wants to save people and that he came from the world of God beyond the forest. The soldiers are shocked. Isaac says his story doesn't add up. Kazura says that there are also merchants in God's world who can get lost. Valletta covers the hero with herself and says that he saved them and that he is a gracier himself. She's telling the truth. The soldiers are beginning to understand. Isaac says he didn't know that Gracier was also a merchant. Valletta says there are merchants in God's world. A young army commander orders his soldiers to arrest Kazura. The hero thinks that the situation is the same as in the legend. Isaac asks if Kazura invented the wheel. He looks at the paper in the notebook and says that writing with a pen is very convenient. Isaac asks Valletta why people believe that Kazura is a Gracier. He wonders what this belief is based on. Kazura nodded at the girl. The hero understands that there is no point in lying now. Valletta says that now the situation is the same as in the legend. Kazura brought food and saved the village from starvation. Isaac wants to know where that food is. The hero remembers that there is a bag left in the house, which may contain things that will prove that he is not lying. He says there is a bag behind Valen's house. Other houses may also have food. Isaac orders Kazura to be untied. The soldier tells him that this is only to maintain the legend and he better not run away because his sins will increase. He asks what he is guilty of. Soldier Ruth says that the hero perjured himself and illegally emigrated. He is entitled to a fine because he is from another country or work for illegal relocation. Kazura is surprised that the laws in this world are much better than he imagined. He is not happy that he recognized them on himself. Isaac will continue to investigate in hysteria. Kazura asks if he proves that he is a Gracier, if the charges against him will be dropped. Isaac confirms this, but if he's lying, he's going to be punished. For naming the god Kazura, his tongue will be torn out. He says it's very cruel. To begin with, he suggests visiting the village because he has luggage from the land of God there. A soldier in the village says that all the residents are in their homes. The vice captain is inspecting the headman's house. The vice captain ordered not to touch the residents. Isaac praised Havel for following the order. Kazura thinks that with such a depressed mood, there will be no riot to save him. Isaac tells Kazura to follow him to the elder's crowbar. He says not to be afraid and keep up. Havel and Valen are standing near the house. Havel calls Isaac, and Valen is glad to see Kazura is fine. Kazura says that his identity has been revealed, but he will not leave the village. Havel doesn't understand why they call him Gracier. Isaac tells everyone to go inside. Kazura thinks that if he shows a variety of tools, Isaac will believe that he is a Gracier. The problem is what happens next. The hero realizes that as soon as the higher-ups receive Isaac's report, they will come to use it for their own purposes. Alone, he can slip into Japan. But what will happen to the inhabitants then? The young man wants to resolve everything peacefully. First, he needs to convince Isaac that he is a Gracier. He will think about the rest later. There is a bag and a suitcase on the floor. Isaac asks if it's all made of leather. The young man is surprised. Kazura says it's made of oil, burning water from God's world. Isaac is amazed. The hero says he wants to show the contents of the bag. The young man takes out a flashlight and turns it on. A light appears on the wall. Isaac and Havel are amazed by what they see. Kazura says that this cylinder contains the power of the spirit of light. He shows him a tin of canned food and tells him that food can be stored for years until the expiration date. He suggests opening one. Isaac says he will open it in hysteria. Kazura realizes that they don't believe him. Isaac says that all these things do not prove that he is a Gracier. The hero realizes that there is only one thing left. Kazura gets up and says he wants to show everyone something. He tells everyone to follow him. Isaac asks where they are going. In the forest, the heroes are standing near the entrance to Kazura's world. He says that behind this entrance is the territory of the gods. The hero says that no one else can get through. He holds out his hand to Valletta and addresses her. The girl understands him without words. Valletta walks through the entrance and disappears in front of everyone. The soldiers are watching in shock. Kazura says, Valletta just moved to the entrance of the forest. He says the same thing will happen to the others. He suggests Isaac give it a try. The hero is silent. Suddenly, Isaac drops to one knee and apologizes for every rudeness towards Kazura. He says that all the blame is on him and asks for forgiveness from his subordinates. In return, he wants to give his life. Kazura and Havel try to stop him. Kazura tells him not to do it. Isaac doesn't know how else to apologize. The hero says that he honestly fulfilled his duty and all his sins are forgiven. Isaac says he tied him up and treated him disrespectfully. Such an attitude towards God cannot simply be forgiven. Kazura tries to convince him otherwise. He says that all Isaac's sins are forgiven. Havel gets down on one knee and addresses Kazura. The young man says that hunger has invaded Arcady, a lot of people are suffering, and he begs Kazuru to save them. The hero understands that this was supposed to happen. Isaac says the royal family and the lords have already tried everything. Kazura asks what the population of the country is. The soldiers reply that there are about 2 million. Kazura says he can't solve everyone's problems. The soldiers are desperate. The young man says that he is not going to leave everyone. He wants to tell everyone how to increase the harvest and what tools to use. The hero has one condition, not to touch the village of Grise and not to interfere in its affairs. Kazura asks them not to relocate and to collect taxes honestly. Isaac asks if they should be treated with respect. Isaac and Havel say they will personally lay out the conditions to the Lord and fulfill Kazura's wish. The hero knows that helping this country will be difficult, but being accused is even worse. Valletta came to the men. Kazura says that he is going to Hysteria and will leave the girl for a while. Isaac is surprised that the hero goes voluntarily. Valletta shouts that she will only go with Kazura. Isaac says that if he wants, the girl can go with him. This will make it easier to explain the whole situation and the villagers will feel safer. The young man agrees and says that in that case, Valletta and Valine will go with him. Isaac tells Havel to let the soldiers go. They will tell everyone that Kazura is a messenger noble from another country. Kazura thinks that these soldiers decided not to report to the elders. They will definitely keep the existence of Glacier a secret. If rumors spread, it would be troublesome. Valletta and Kazura enter the house. The hero wants to take canned food on the road. He doesn't know if he should just take the suitcase. The young man says that it would be better to return the excess back to Japan because they can send back for the rest. Kazura still doesn't know what's in the suitcase. There are a lot of different things in the suitcase. There's even a sword, a gas mask, and strange gloves. Kazura remembers his father's words that all this would be useful to him for rural life. The hero realizes that his father was well aware of the secret door. He is holding a bulletproof vest in his hands. Valletta holds a sword in her hands and says that, judging by its markings, it has already been used and the sword is well maintained. The girl is worried that Kazura may not return. He will definitely be asked to teach them technologies other than the water wheel. The Lord will want to keep it with him. The hero says that everything will be fine because he can use the absolute power of God to return. The girl also went to get ready. Kazura tells the villagers that he is going back into history for a short time to meet with the Lord and share his wisdom. The hero says that he goes voluntarily and will definitely return. Valletta and Valin go with him. Someone is calling the hero. Corsi approaches the hero in tears. Kazura says he's fine. He promises to play with them when he gets back. Isaac tells Corsi not to bother Gracier. Kazura tells him not to be so strict with the child. Kazura addresses the residents and tells them that he will definitely return. He asks them not to worry and not to be discouraged. The young man, accompanied by Valletta, Valin, and soldiers Isaac and Havel, goes into history. When Kazura mounted the snow-white horse, the whole group set off after him, and Havel watched with a smile as Kaduza awkwardly held on to the reins of the horse. He was a little excited about this trip. After some time, they arrived at the right place, and the soldier helped him off his horse, saying that Kazura was tired of this trip. The young man thanked him for his help and said that it was really quite tiring to go to Rata. In his mind, Kazura was surprised that this horse did not have stirrups, and also thought that his body ached from the hard saddle, although riding a horse was better than walking. Valletta immediately went up to him to offer him a waterskin. Havel came up to him and informed Kazura that they had only bread and dried meat for lunch in the camp, taken with them by the soldiers. Kazura realized that these were military rations and said that there was nothing wrong with that. The young man turned to the man standing next to him and said that the military had preferential conditions even in terms of food. He replied with a smile that this was a special unit, and all the soldiers here were sons of nobles. Kazura was surprised and asked again. The man told him that all the soldiers had daggers on their belts decorated with family coats of arms, and Isaac and Havel were above the others in title. These soldiers gained experience here to master their units. Kaduza looked at the soldiers who couldn't set up a tent and thought that they weren't very skilled yet because they were new recruits. The young man was 25 years old, and the soldiers here were younger than him. Isaac called him and told him that they had prepared a tent. Kazura and the others followed him and approached the tent. The young man looked in there and said that it was very beautiful there. Isaac told him that dinner was coming soon. Sitting down at the table, the young man said that it was cozy there, and such a large tent took up a lot of space in the cart. Valletta smiled and said that they could spend the night here without the cold. The soldiers who brought the food came in, and then they bowed and left. Kazura looked at the food and said that the portions were so large that you might not even think that there was a shortage of food in the country. The others agreed with him, and the young man thought that the portions were like that because of the attitude of the soldiers towards him. Valletta and her father took bread in their hands and broke it easily, and then began to eat. Kazura also tried to break the bread, but it was difficult for him to do so. He decided that the bread was stale. Valletta agreed and offered an exchange, but he refused. After that, it was Kaduza's turn to eat this bread. He thought that bread simply could not be so stale. Dipping it into a plate, the young man remembered that once upon a time in the Soviet army, they gave the same bread. At the same time, in another tent, Havel said they were behind schedule. He added that soldiers are used to having others do everything for them, so it sets up camp. Isaac said that low-ranking nobles outperform others in training. Isaac said that he had originally planned to arrive at Hysteria tomorrow afternoon, but now the plans were changing. Isaac said that upon arrival he was going to ask Nelson to meet with Kazura and hoped that he could explain the reasons for that. Havel asked if Isaac would mind if he offered the hospitality of the Rusin family, because Isaac would be busy with a report upon arrival. He replied that it would be better to report as soon as possible and also invite Kazura to his house. Havel said it was convenient, but he could personally invite Kazura to his mansion because that way he would be able to give instructions to his people directly. Isaac agreed to leave Kazura in Havel's care. As Isaac left, he said that he was going to tell Isaac the contents of their conversation and asked if Havel was going to rest. He agreed and sighed heavily from fatigue. Walking down the street at night, Kazura was delighted that there were only mansions in this place, and he wondered if there were houses like those in the center of Hysteria. Valletta was worried that she and her father would spend the night at Havel's. Havel pointed to his mansion and offered to follow him. Kazura froze, and Havel called out to him. At the mansion, a maid greeted Havel. He said that he had brought an important guest and told the maid Marie to prepare dinner and a bath. The guests were brought to a beautiful room. Kazura said that they were allowed to stay in this room in order to impress him, because he did not believe that Havel and Isaac worked so hard for them. The young man said that it was good, because they were not going to harm them, and so they could build a good relationship. He took a bite of an apple and decided that he had a rare chance to treat himself from the master's table. Valletta asked if it was difficult for him to ride. The young man replied that he was very tired. Kazura said that he would like to talk to Valletta and her father before meeting with the Lord. First they need to discuss the answers they will give. He said that it was necessary to keep secret the strength of the villagers obtained from food, as well as about drinks. The young man only managed to say that because there was a knock on the door. Mari came in and announced that the tub was ready, and Kazura went first. After seeing him off, the maid offered to help him take off his clothes. Kazura was stunned. He turned away in embarrassment and wondered if this was normal. At that moment, he noticed a man with scissors behind him, and while he was looking at him, Marie pulled off his clothes. Kazura exclaimed that he could take it off himself. Marie agreed and said she would prepare a change of clothes for him. When she left, the young man breathed a sigh of relief, but completely forgot about the man. He exclaimed that Kazura could rely on him and offered to knock out Kazura's body. He upset the man, saying that it was not necessary. At that time, Havel communicated with his servant and said that the carriage would be for them tomorrow. He told the man not to be strict with their peasant guests. He told the servant to provide them with food and hospitality. He was surprised that Havel treated peasants like that, and not noble people. Havel said that there were still many such peasants, and then he began to leave and told the servant to do everything. Before leaving, Havel clarified that his father and older brother would arrive in 5 days. The servant replied that they were now in Gregold's lands near the border of Hysteria. Havel is gone. After a while, he led the guests into the living room where the table was already set. He said they had prepared as sumptuous a dinner as possible. Sitting down at the table, Kazura said that it was just great. Valletta also said she had never seen anything like it before. Havel told them that they could not hold back. In that case, Kazura decided to start eating. After tasting the food, he exclaimed admiringly that it was delicious. He laughed contentedly because this meat with pepper was very tasty. Havel was glad that they liked the food. While they were enjoying their meal, Havel said he had a request for Kazura. He asked the young man to let him know if he needed anything, because Havel could get everything he needed. Kazura smiled and said that this was a very generous offer, so he agreed to it. Upon hearing this, Havel bowed sharply and thanked the interlocutor for agreeing. After eating in their room, Kazura said that dinner was good and he ate too much. Valletta saw that he was holding his stomach and asked how the young man was feeling. He replied that there was something wrong with his stomach. Valletta thought about his stomachache, but Kazura told her he was actually very hungry. It started yesterday, and no matter how much he eats, he doesn't get full. The young man got up from his seat, deciding to eat some fruit, but suddenly his legs trembled and he fell. Valletta held him back in fright. Kazura apologized to her because he was very dizzy. The young man grabbed the girl's shoulder with his hand and was stunned to notice that his hand was shaking violently. He remembered that this had already happened. By that time, his hands had stopped shaking and he thanked Valletta for her help. Opening the canned food, he said that he thought he had hypoglycemia, because while he worked at the company, he had not eaten for a long time. The symptoms were the same. Valletta said that she had read about this, and it comes from a lack of glucose in the blood, but then it turned out that Kazura had not eaten for a long time, but now he ate canned food, and he felt better. The young man thought that he felt better and assumed that the food had low nutritional properties in this, which explained his hunger. He noticed that people in this world are very hardy and cannot eat for a long time. It was amazing for him. Then Kazura suggested that food from Japan acquires special properties here. There was still a lot that the young man did not know. At that moment, he was thinking too much, and Valletta called out to him. At the same time, Isaac was talking to a man who was stunned, and asked him again about who had appeared. Isaac replied that they had found Glacier in the village. The man understood what was going on, and considered Kazuru to be a god from legends. Isaac said that the village received food supplies a week ago. The man asked if Isaac had seen Glacier. He called the man Nelson and said that they had seen Glacier themselves, and Nelson would meet with him tomorrow. He was outraged by this, and said that he could not meet with Glacier so soon. Isaac said, for the sake of confidentiality, they settled Kaduzura with the Rusan family. Nelson asked what Glacier wanted to talk to him about. Isaac said that Glacier wanted to ease their suffering from hunger. Isaac said that Glacier is the real thing. After that, he left to inform Havel about it. A woman came to Nelson and asked what had happened. Nelson clarified that Sarachka hails from a mountainous area in the northwest. She agreed. Nelson said he wanted to ask her for cooperation. In the morning, Kazura and the others rode the wagon to meet Nelson. After a while, they arrived. The place they arrived at looked like a fortress. In this place, the buildings were divided into a perimeter and a central part. In the residential area, Isaac knocked on the door, saying that he had brought a guest. When the door opened, Kazura swallowed hard when he saw Nelson there. Isaac introduced Kazura, Valen, and his daughter. Kazura greeted him, and also introduced himself to Nelson. He smiled. He introduced himself, and said that he was the commander of the Hysteria army, and the woman behind him was his wife, Zirconia. Nelson said he was grateful to Kazura for his help. Isaac and Havel were surprised and asked about what was going on. Nelson said he didn't know much about farming, but military matters were his part. Isaac and Havel were stunned by his courtesy. Kazura didn't waste any more time, and they started discussing. He asked about the state of affairs that required his help. Nelson said that thanks to Kazura, they would quickly restore everything, and he also had a request. He was informed that Kazura had special tools, and he would like to see them. The young man replied that he did not mind and asked Isaac and Havel to bring them. When they arrived, Kazura spread them out on the table and asked where he should start. Nelson and Zirconia were surprised to see the instruments. Kazura decided to start with a lantern powered by the power of the spirit of light inside. This lantern gave no heat and shone in all directions. Zirconia was delighted, but Nelson calmed her down and told her to speak normally. The woman agreed and apologized to Kazura for her pretense. The young man was surprised by her words. Then Zirconia said that there was a possibility that Kazura was an imposter. They spoke languages of different regions, and Kazura did not react at all when she spoke the language of the southern islands and her native language. The young man was stunned. He realized that they had not spoken Japanese all this time and decided that he was being played. Nelson said he didn't believe the story at first and therefore apologized for his behavior. Kazura said that everything was fine. He thought he had achieved what he wanted. Kazura said that the lantern could break from the rain. Nelson picked it up and asked what the transparent part was made of. The young man replied that it was made of plastic, which was durable. Zirconium thought that plastic could be used to make equipment, but Kaduza said that plastic was not so durable and decided not to mention the shield. Then he took out something that surprised everyone. It was canned food that had been stored for a long time. Nelson wanted to try it, and Kazura allowed it. The atmosphere became tense. Nelson asked Isaac if he wanted to try, and Isaac agreed. He said the food was delicious and the shelf life was amazing. Havel wanted to try it too, and Valletta went to get the plates. Nelson said that this food could save people, and said he would like to learn how to cook this food. Kazura said that his sympathy for them in this situation, but still would not give them all the knowledge, because he had already proved that he was God. But he would not distribute knowledge without restrictions. He thought that he had already given the village a water wheel, but he would not throw away technology. He decided to show Nelson another thing. After he showed everything, Nelson thanked him, and they decided to talk about their lands. Zirconia went to get the documents and asked Isaac for help. Nolan said that the documents are secret, so Valletta and the headman need to get out. Havel said the guests could wait in the other room. Nelson said it was a good idea. Kazura agreed and reminded Havel of the promise. Nelson became interested in this. Kazura said that Havel had promised him not to interfere in Grisey's affairs. Nelson said he would keep this promise and thanked him for his help. Then Havel took Valletta and the headman to another room. Kazura was stunned by the large number of documents he brought. Nelson told him that the areas in the north and west were hardest hit by the drought. Kaduzra realized that he could not read the words in the documents. Nelson said that part of the budget goes to military spending and decided not to go into details because there were many circumstances. Kazura said that he would cope with this problem, but he needed help, and they needed to work together to solve flood and sanitary issues. Nelson was delighted and thanked Kazura for his help. The young man said that they need to prepare the necessary things within 2 days. Nelson asked about what things. Kazura replied that he had at least 3 bags of a certain size. Nelson told Isaac to bring them. Kazura said that he did not have time to finish, and in fact he urgently needed 3,000 bags. Isaac was stunned while Kazura was saying that the bags should have ties. He asked for a lot of wagons to be prepared so that the bags could be transported, and a detachment was also needed to protect the caravan. In total, they will need 300 people who are ready for such work. Nelson was also stunned, but agreed, and Zirconia said she still had a meeting with the officers. Kazura asked her to stay, and she had to agree. A cart was waiting for them outside. Kazura told Valletta that he would be back in 3 days and asked Valletta to convey his gratitude to the villagers. The girl was upset about the separation. The young man wanted to ask her to stay, but he couldn't. He thought that if he left her here, he would continue to rely on her, and he didn't need that. From the very beginning, he did not want to burden the inhabitants of Grisey because he wanted to protect them. Suddenly, Valletta asked Kazura to come back soon, and the young man stroked her head. On the way, one of the soldiers asked Valine to sit next to him in the cart, and he agreed. He offered Valen a drink, and he agreed again. The soldier said he also had a daughter, so there was something that bothered him. He asked why Valletta was so sad. Valen said he didn't understand it himself, and Valletta became like that after leaving Hysteria. The soldier thought it was because of Kazura, but Valen denied it. The soldier told Valen that he did not need to interfere in love affairs, and Valen wondered what Sita would do in this situation. The soldier asked where Valen's wife was now, and he replied that she had died. The soldier said he had lost 2 of his brothers. At the same time, Kazura and Havel were at the river where the floods occur. Havel showed in which area the water overflows its banks. The young man asked Havel to show him the materials used in the construction of the riverbank, and he agreed. Then Kazura asked Havel to turn away, and when he did, he took a picture of the river on his phone. He decided that he needed to make a plan, for which he needed the pictures. Kazura told Havel to go down to the river to explore the flooded areas. At night, he discussed everything with Nelson and Havel. Nelson said that he would just call Kazuru his friend so that his identity would not cause a stir. He agreed. Then they decided what they would call each other. Kazura said he wanted to borrow a map of the Hysteria neighborhood and documents related to local development from them. Nelson agreed, but he was bothered by the fact that the documents were confidential, so Kazura said he would not show them to anyone. Nelson handed over the documents to the young man, because he had prepared them before the departure of that one. Kazura thanked him, and then they decided to take a break for a meal. Havel decided to eat later. Nelson led Kazura down the hall and into the living room, where the table was set. Suddenly, the maid excitedly covered her mouth with her hand. Nelson asked her what had happened, to which she replied in the negative and apologized. Nelson wanted his wife and daughter to join them for dinner later, and Kazura agreed. Then the young man remembered that the maid was the girl he bumped into in the city. Nelson asked him what happened, but Kazura said that everything was fine. Nelson told the maid Era to call Liz. The girl left the room, looking around. She also recognized Kazura, but was surprised that he was with Nelson. Era decided to tell Liz about it. She rushed into Liz's room abruptly, but saw the Zirconia there. She froze in shock, muttering that it was very serious. Zirconia asked about what happened, and Era replied that she was here to say that dinner was ready. Zirconia said to knock on the door, and Era apologized for that. Liz asked about what Era was doing by doing this. Soon, Nolan introduced Kazura and Liz, asking his daughter to help the young man settle into the estate. Kazura introduced himself to the girl, and she introduced herself in return. She knew about him from her mother that he was helping them, so she could help him in return. From her words, Kazura was confused, thinking that he was getting closer to people. He decided that he needed to help them for Valletta's sake. That evening, a group of people was walking through the forest. One of them approached the big man who was in charge and said that they had found a small village. He said that the number of guards was the same as when leaving Hysteria. The chief said that his subordinates would load the food, and they would start after the convoy delivered the cargo. The other man was stressed that there might be people with combat experience in the village. The chief said that they would attack at night, rob houses, and escape. He said that food should be stored at the headman's house. The subordinate understood and decided to follow the convoy. The chief said that first of all they steal food and, if possible, women. They both grinned. The chief said they needed to rest for now. At night, Valletta heard some sounds from her house. She thought that it was Kazura and was already glad when suddenly, the main robber entered her house with a sword in his hands. Valletta was scared when he swung at her, but when he saw that it was a girl, he stopped. The chief abruptly knocked her to the floor and told his subordinates to deal with the others, and he decided to deal with Valletta. Kazura was sitting surrounded by children and Valletta, reading them a fairy tale about the evil wolf, who broke the houses of piglets made of straw and planks but could not break the brick one, and all 3 piglets took refuge there. The children were delighted by this. Then the wolf climbed onto the roof of the house, but one of the piglets noticed it, and they boiled the wolf in a cauldron. All the adults gathered there were confused by such harshness, and only then did Kazura notice that the book had a new ending written on it. The young man immediately put the book aside and offered the children other books, and then watched Valletta read them to the children. Holding Valletta, the robber told her not to worry, because he would do everything quickly. When he was about to touch her, there was a crash. The man was distracted, not understanding what was happening. His subordinates ran into the house, shouting that a man was chasing them. The chief robber stared at them in surprise. At that moment, another robber came running and exclaimed that they were making too much noise. Suddenly, one of the robbers fell to the floor. He was killed by Nolan, who came for his daughter. When he saw the main robber next to her, he became even more angry and attacked him. The latter shouted at him not to move so that he would not harm Valletta. The girl grabbed his arm and broke it. The robber was stunned. He began to run away in fright, but at that moment Nolan killed him. He sat down worriedly next to his daughter. The rest of the robbers hurried to escape. Nolan said they needed to wake up everyone in the village to catch up with the robbers and keep a couple of them alive. In the morning, Kaiser was scratching the wall when a worried Isaac approached him. Kazura noticed this, but Isaac told him not to worry. Kazura recalled that he had already met similar behavior from people. He brought Isaac into the house and offered him tea to calm down. Isaac thanked him. Kazura thought about the difficulty with the bags, and Isaac replied that they had already ordered them. Kazura realized that this wasn't why Isaac was upset. After a while, Isaac calmed down, and Kazura thought that it was thanks to the herbal tea, which worked too well. Then he asked Isaac about how the bricks in this building are connected. Isaac said they were connected by a mixture of gypsum and sand or clay. He said that Kazura could ask him about the materials. He asked about the lime. Isaac said he would get her immediately. Kazura decided that the sanitary issues have not yet been resolved, so they are not up to lime. He thought that lime could be prepared here. Isaac said that now he and Havel will be his assistants. Kazura took this as meaning that they would be his subordinates, and Isaac agreed. He suddenly knelt down and swore to protect Kazura even at the cost of his life, because he would be happy to serve him. Kazura was stunned, and then there was a stomping sound. After a while, the young man excitedly ran to Nelson, asking if Valletta had been injured in the attack on Grisea. The soldier replied that all the residents were fine. They defeated the attackers and took 3 prisoners. Zirconium was stressed by the fact that 13 people attacked the village, but all of them were killed and the residents were not injured. The soldier replied that it was all true. He said that when they arrived at the village, they saw that the bandits had been killed from behind without a fight and with one blow. The soldier had nothing more to say. Kazura said that he was going to the village right away and ordered Isaac and Havel to prepare for the road. While the preparations were underway, he sat on the sidelines, thinking that he had done the wrong thing by leaving the village. But at that moment he wanted to help the country, and now he didn't know what to do. Soon the preparations were completed, and Havel asked him to get into the carriage and then told Marie to take a seat in the carriage. Kazura remembered her and asked her to sit with him in the carriage. Havel asked her to do so, and then left. Mari was very surprised, and Kazura said that she would stay with him all the way to the village. When the carriage was on its way, he noticed that Marie did not greet him and said that they could stop the carriage, but the girl refused. Then he decided to give her grapefruit medicine to help. He poured the medicine on the cloth and told Marie to inhale it. She thanked him and apologized for the inconvenience by inhaling the medicine. She felt better almost immediately. Kazura looked at the delighted girl and realized why Marie had gone with them. They arrived at the village at night. Kazura was glad to see that all the residents were safe, and they were glad to see him. Valletta ran to meet him. It was only when he saw her unharmed that he could breathe a sigh of relief. The girl said she was scared, but thanks to the power that Kazura gave them, they coped. Nolan said that they should not let their guard down, and now they will stand guard. He added that Valletta had come up with various additional tools. She would like to know his opinion on this, and showed him her drawings for the protection of the village. Valletta said it would have saved them from robbers, but it could have interfered with the channel. Valletta said that she would build a canal underground, and for this she needed a stone, and also, Kazura decided to buy lime. The girl said that they would conduct water underground and expand the village. She was thinking about making a hand pump, but doubted about applying Kazura's knowledge. He said that everything was fine. Valletta said she would also like to make a steam engine. Kazura was stunned. Then the girl exclaimed that it was a joke and she wanted to make a car. The young man replied that he would get the materials for this. Valletta thanked him and said that they needed to learn how to make the details themselves. Suddenly, the young man noticed blood on the floor, and Valletta said that these stains would not be wiped off. Kazura realized that the fight had taken place here. The girl said that everything happened when she heard a noise, but her father defeated everyone. She was scared, and Kazura blamed himself for leaving the village. Then Valletta exclaimed that he was not to blame for anything. Suddenly she began to cry, which stunned the young man. During the battle, Valletta was too scared. Nina knocked at Valletta's house in the morning, but no one answered her. Then the door opened and Valletta came out with a tired face. Nina greeted her in surprise. She realized that everything was serious. At home, Valletta said she knew Nina wanted to ask her about Kazura, and she agreed. Nina wanted to ask about what happened last night, but Valletta started crying. After that, Nina hit her and told her to pull herself together and not cry. Valletta was surprised that Nina had attacked her so abruptly. Nina said that Kazura was worried about her. Valletta was stunned. She said that Kazura only found out about the attack at night, but despite this, he calmed her down all night. Nina punched Valletta to remind her of this, but Valletta didn't even think she was offended. Nina asked why she hadn't apologized before locking herself in the room. Valletta had wanted to tell him something before, but now she was sitting with a sad face. Then Valletta confessed that she wants to be with Kazura, but only gives him trouble. She did a lot to help him. She has become attached to Kazura, but does not know if she is worthy of being with him. She didn't even think about the young man's feelings. She didn't want to separate from him. She couldn't even think about that. Nina asked if Valletta loved Kazura that much, and the girl agreed. Nina said she had nothing to worry about, and it would be good if Kazura admitted it. Valletta said that she would only be a burden to Kazura because she asks a lot from him. Nina exclaimed that his help meant they got along well and Valletta wasn't causing any problems. Nina exclaimed that there was a limit to being annoying, and Valletta needed to be persistent. She agreed. Nina told her to have more faith in Kazuru because she shouldn't think about him considering her a burden. Nina said that Valletta loves Kazura, so she doesn't want to bother him. They could come to an understanding if Valletta told him about it, so she needs to be more honest. Valletta understood her and thanked her. After that, Nina offered to make tea, and Valletta agreed. Kazura wondered if everything was okay with Valletta. He hoped he had helped her, because sometimes it's better to entrust it to another woman. Isaac came up to him and greeted him. Kazura noticed his cheerfulness, but he himself did not sleep from anxiety. Isaac told him that so far they had found nothing in the vicinity of the village. Havel approached Marie and asked if everything had worked out for her yesterday. She said that Kazura was an unusual person because he helped her. Havel agreed that he was good. Marie said she was nervous at first, but then she felt relieved, as if she was talking to her mother. She immediately apologized for those words. Havel said that in private, Marie could call him brother. He said that his power is not enough yet, but someday he will find a way. Kazura greeted Havel. Isaac said they would leave tomorrow. Kazura realized that he had a lot of free time now. He said he wanted to visit the world of the gods. He thought he had done wrong to Nelson and the others, and he didn't know if it would be right to change his mind. Liz woke up in the morning. She washed, dressed, and did exercises, and then left the room and greeted everyone, deciding to stay in the yard. There she trained with a spear and got tired. After that, she took out a beautiful pendant from the bag. Ira greeted her and noticed the pendant. Liz remembered Kazura's reaction when she tried to give him the expensive pendant he had lost. Her mother had told her that Kazura was noble and rich, so Liz wondered what country he was from. She remembered his smile and considered this pendant as a sign of attention for her, so Liz decided that she would not miss it. She wanted to make him fall in love with her. The door of the dark basement opened and someone came downstairs. There was one of the robbers who were caught by the villagers. It was Zirconium who came to interrogate him. The robber recognized her as General Zirconium. She smiled grimly and asked him not to call her general. The robber knew that she had lost the battle against Valver. When he spoke about it, Zirconia took out a knife. She said that this thing was already old, but she didn't have time because she wanted the robber to answer her questions. The man was stunned when Zirconium began to ask him questions and chop off his fingers. First, she asked about how many robbers there were in total. After a while, Nelson read the robber's testimony, which was hard to believe, but the testimony of all was the same. They said that something had happened to the villagers. Nelson recalled the legend of the food that made people strong. Nelson thought that the legend might be real. He and Zirconium fell silent in surprise. The woman said she had a headache and would go to Istria to get evidence. She pressed the candle and opened the secret door. Kazura returned to his mansions and decided to first buy compost, which he found at a cheap price. The area of their crops was huge, so a lot of fertilizers were needed. He wondered if the tatami would be damaged by such a load. He wiggled his tatami leg and then raised it in surprise. He saw a tile under them. The young man immediately wrote to his father about what had happened. He asked his son why he was worried. Kazura's mom came up to him, and her father told her that Kazura was fine. She said it was good that he had succeeded. My father wondered what Kazura wanted to bring to the other side, and he was intently examining the floor. Kazura arrived by car at the place he needed. There he found a man because he wanted to buy even more compost. He asked how much he needed. The young man replied that about 50 tons, which should be sent tomorrow. The man was surprised and decided to take this big order right away. Kazura thanked him. The man said that they produce a lot of compost at a low price because they have a lot of cows. Kazura became curious about how they make compost. The man replied that they were scattering straw over the pasture. Then the cow manure is mixed with straw, and they collect it with an excavator, and then mix it with water and leave it to ferment. Kazura remembered everything. Then he came to another place to ask for a flood control plan. The chief said he was worried about the lack of technology there. The young man apologized to him for the difficult service and asked him to accept this job. Kazura suggested that the man ask for a professor who understands architecture. The young man thought that such a plan would be better. The man was surprised that it needed to be done quickly because he thought it was necessary for a dissertation. Suddenly, someone said that this conversation was interesting. The man said that Kazura's drawings were good. It was the director of the company who said that he could take up construction. He swore at his employee for not taking the job, even though it was in their line. The director kicked the employee out and said he would take up this order. He asked Kazura to tell him where these drawings came from. The young man said that this was a fictional ancient era. He said they were blueprints of an ancient city. The director thought that Kazura wanted to take it to the institute, but the young man said that it was his hobby. Upon learning this, the director apologized. The director looked at the photos and thought they were computer graphics, and Kazura agreed. He said that it was necessary to reconstruct the affected areas with explanations and illustrations. They started talking about payment, and Kazura said he could pay the advance now. The director apologized to him for his doubts. As a result, the young man paid an advance of 10%. Then Katsura came to the electrical store because he needed an electric generator and a refrigerator because he ate a lot. The consultant offered him one of the refrigerators as well as a generator for it. Kazura thought that gasoline for the generator should be stored in barrels. Then he bought a refrigerator and a generator with a long running time. The consultant offered him a lot more equipment, and Kazura bought a laptop. As a result, he bought more things than he was going to. Now he had to buy some more. He came to another store to buy mortar for lime. He was offered slaked lime, and Kazura bought as much as 2 tons. Then he bought 2 20-liter gasoline cans. Then he noticed a noise-canceling generator there, which Kazura had forgotten about. He asked the consultant to check the noise from the generator. They turned on the generator, which turned out to be quite noisy even in normal operation. It was quieter on the weak mode. Kazura thanked the consultant. He thought the generator was convenient, but it couldn't be used much. He took out his phone and called the man from whom he had bought the water wheel. The young man praised that water wheel and said he wanted a wheel that generates electricity. The man said they only have a weak wheel. He suggested a hydroelectric generator instead of a wheel. Kazura said he wanted to see their catalog first. The man agreed, and they said goodbye. The young man thought that he would live in peace and hysteria because such technologies are difficult to copy. Now it needs to be delivered. He got a call saying it was a compost delivery, and Kazura told him to leave it in the yard. After that, the tech store called him. Everything was delivered so fast that Kazura couldn't keep up. Soon, a whole mountain of purchases appeared in the forest, which Kazura still had to move. This time, he had a special technique in which he loaded the compost. Then he went to Gracia. Kazura was afraid to even think about how many times he would have to drive back and forth. In this car, the young man moved to the village of Grisea, where he greeted the stunned residents. Kazura told them that these were vehicles from the world of the gods. He asked people to move away to unload the compost. He had to drive many more times, so he wanted to ask someone to put all the compost in a pile. Suddenly, Valletta ran up to him with Nina. Nina smiled and nodded. Kazura said that this compost is for the fields of hysteria. They had 50 tons, and the young man wanted to establish the production of water wheels. Valletta thought about it. Kazura asked what Valletta was doing, since everyone was already working. She said they were building a fence and a watchtower. The young man said that he would soon bring 2 tons of lime, and Valletta thanked him. Kazura went to get the rest of the cargo. Zirconium arrived in the village, and Isaac handed over command to her. She thanked him and apologized for being late. Then she heard a noise. It was Kazura, who was transporting cargo, who greeted her. Eze explained to Zirconium that it was a tool for transporting goods. The woman became curious about the speed of this technique. Kazura said that she is slow and not suitable for battles. Zirconia was stunned that she was discovered so quickly. Soon, Kazura and Valletta sat down at the table to eat some food, made from large vegetables. Nolan said that Zirconium was surprised to inspect the field. The vegetables were still growing, and they were already the size of a ball. Kazura was stunned by the size of the potato alone. They did not expect such a result from fertilizers with bird droppings. Kazura tensed up and assumed that this was very bad. While eating, Valletta noticed Kazura's thoughtful look and asked about what happened, but he replied that he was just thinking. He said that this food had the same properties as the one he brought because he was getting full. He remembered that the villagers had become stronger from this food. Kazura said that spreading compost to restore fields would be too dangerous. Valletta suggested that he eat potatoes and eggs to see if they would satisfy him. He obeyed her and told Valletta and Nolan to eat too. The young man set a timer and then asked about the herbs in the garden. Valletta replied that everything was fine, but herbs grown from seeds grow slowly, unlike those with fertilizers. The seedlings were also in no hurry, but they were not sick. Kazura asked why they weren't growing, but they had to wait to find out. The timer rang, but Kazura still didn't get enough of this food, so they could use compost in Hysteria, but the food needs to be tested on other people. They need someone who wouldn't blab about the special properties of food. All three of them thought about Isaac. Isaac arrived at night and apologized for being late. They entered the tent to talk about what Kazura needed. There he offered Isaac a taste of potatoes and eggs. Isaac liked them, but Kazura told him to eat them all. When Isaac had eaten everything, they returned to what they wanted to talk about. Kazura wanted Isaac to start training his muscles right now. He told Isaac to do squats and push-ups for 2 whole hours. When Isaac started doing this, Kazura started the timer. After 2 hours, Isaac finished, and he was very tired. The young man immediately jumped up to him and asked if he was okay. He replied that he was tired, and Kazura thanked him and then told him to rest. Isaac asked why it was necessary at all, but Kazura said he couldn't tell him yet, and asked him not to tell anyone about it. Isaac agreed, and they said goodbye. At that time, in her tent, Zirconia read the robber's testimony again, where they believed that the residents had received God's blessing. The woman immediately began to recall suspicious situations. Zirconia thought that if she had had the same strength during that battle, the outcome would have been different. She clenched her hand into a fist and distracted herself from these thoughts, deciding that she was thinking too much. When she went outside, she noticed that Kazura was coming out of Azizek's tent and saying goodbye to him. Zirconia entered Isaac's tent because she wanted to talk about what happened in the village, but stopped in mid-sentence and opened her eyes wide. She saw Isaac with his bare torso, who was asking her about what had happened. Zirconia was confused and thought the wrong thing, and then said she wouldn't tell anyone about it. Isaac immediately roused himself and began to explain to Zirconia, who swore that she would not tell Lisa anything, that everything was completely wrong. Suddenly, Habel came into Isaac's tent, who wanted to discuss something with him. Habel stopped talking because he saw Isaac holding Zirconium by the shoulders. He froze, stunned. He started swearing at Isaac and said he would arrest him, and Isaac started apologizing to everyone. In the morning, Kazura decided to look at Isaac's condition after training. The young man noticed that Isaac was pale and thought that he was very tired. Isaac replied that it was because of Zirconia, who came to his tent after Kazura left. Isaac explained that there had been a misunderstanding, which was that when she entered the tent, she saw Isaac bare-chested and sweaty, and right before that, Kazura came out of his tent. The young man immediately imagined this obscene picture, and hoped that Isaac was protecting them in front of Zirconium. He said that it was so. Kazura thought that in order to justify themselves, they needed to reveal the secret of food, and told Isaac that he would figure it out on his own. After a while, Zirconia watched bags and boxes of something being unloaded from the cart. Isaac said that they contained food from the world of the gods, as well as tools that he was instructed to carry. Zirconia wanted to know why Kazuru was not satisfied with their food, and Isaac said that he liked the food from Habel's mansion. Zirconia wanted to talk to Habel to find the cook who made it. Isaac agreed with her, but suddenly they remembered what happened yesterday. When everything was loaded, Kazura praised them, and Valletta offered him water. Watching them, Zirconia thought that Kazura was infatuated with Valletta. Isaac said that the young man was worried about Valletta after the attack on the village. Zirconia approached Kazura, and he said that he only had to load the cart, but they would do it tomorrow. Zirconia offered to ask the villagers for help. Kazura agreed, but was not going to do it. In the evening, at Kazura's house, Valletta read a magazine and admired the essential oils. Kazura suggested that she try everything out because he didn't know how they affected people on the other side. Valletta thought about the fact that these oils have other effects. Kazura replied that these oils are very strong and can help them. Valletta offered to test them on her, and the young man agreed. Then Valletta chose what she liked. First they need to pour water and drop 1 drop into it. Kazura asked what kind of fragrance it was. It was clary sage, which had a relaxing effect. Valletta assumed that he would make her sleepy. Kazura wondered if the girl was getting too carried away. Valletta said that there are probably a lot of such oils in Japan, and the transport that the young man brought was just amazing. Kazura thought he had overdone it because Zirconium was surprised by this transport. Valletta remembered that Kazura had discussed the situation on the battlefield with Zirconia. Kazura said he wanted to wait first because he didn't know much about the country. Valletta agreed, and Kazura said he wanted to stay out of it altogether. The girl said that she wanted to sleep, and if she went to bed, she would fall asleep soundly. Kazura recorded that it worked the same way as in Japan. Suddenly, Valletta said she wanted to ask him for something. She asked Kazura to hug her the same way as last time. At her request, Kazura was stunned, and Valletta blushed with embarrassment. The young man told her to come to him, and when she did, Kazura hugged her. Soon Valletta fell asleep in his arms, and Kazura put her to bed, and then left. In the morning, he brought her to the house to show her first aid items and provisions. Because of that attack, they decided to hide some of the food just in case. Valletta asked if Kazura would be gone for a long time. He replied that he would be back in 10 days, and he also needed to pick up the electric generator ordered by Hydra, which he wanted to use for the refrigerator. Valletta questioned whether this was acceptable. Kazura replied that everything was fine, and outsiders would not see it. He asked Valletta to let him know if anything happened. Valletta smiled and said that the village would be fine, and Kazura looked at her smile in surprise. When he left the house, the residents greeted him excitedly and discussed it with each other. When Kazura was about to leave, Valletta ran up to him, who asked him to take care of himself. The young man asked her the same thing. When he left, Valletta quietly asked him to wait for her. On the way, Zirconia asked about the dishes Hobble served to Kazura while he was visiting him. He didn't know Kazura's preferences, so they cooked different meals. Zirconium was surprised by their large number of stocks. Hobble explained that his father always prefers to store a certain amount of meat and caterpillars purchased from local merchants. This answer satisfied Zirconia's curiosity. She turned around and called out to Hobble. The woman asked Hobble to send them the cook who cooked that time. She was ready to pay well for it, because Kazura liked the dishes that were served there. Hobble was surprised. He smiled and said that the cook was still young and inexperienced, but got along well with Kazura. Zirconia said it was good and asked about who the cook girl was. After some time, the squad stopped to rest. Mari, as well as Kazura, went out to warm up. Even though the wagon was shaking, it was better for Kazura than a trip to Rada. Hobble approached Kazura, who said that the young man was tired during the trip. Kazura replied that it was tiring to ride in a cart, and asked how Hobble did not get tired of it. He replied that he was just used to it. Kazura clarified whether it was true that Hobble and Isaac were running a squad consisting only of nobles. Hobble replied that he had been appointed deputy officer of the 1st Detachment. Kazura asked if those people were okay, because they were helping him. Hobble told him not to worry, because the main training is almost over, so they are training another squad, which is having a hard time right now. Kazura was stunned by how strict their training regime was. Hobble said that the regime is not just strict, because during these trainings they want to die on the battlefield. In the 2nd year of their studies, they move to the barracks, and this is a difficult time for them, so some give up this business. But if they don't have a good reason, it's considered a disgrace, so they need to be prepared for the consequences. Kazura realized that it was difficult to be nobles. Hobble said that this service is voluntary, but almost all nobles come here anyway. Often their families send them by force. Many join out of admiration for the soldiers, but they can't stand it. He said that he and Isaac came here voluntarily because they wanted to. Kazura asked about why they did it. Hobble replied that it was because he had something to protect. Kazura noticed that Hobble smiled and was surprised. He thought he was holding back all the time. The young man decided not to question him further, and Hobble decided to show him the training ground. Suddenly, Kazura realized something. He would like to agree to this, but he does not want to support the military yet. But it is difficult for him to refuse, because he is really interested. Hobble said that if Kazura wanted to, he would take him there at any time. Kazura thought that Hobble was doing his job well. Hobble asked if Kazura would mind if Marie cooked for him. Kazura thought that the food of those people was not suitable for him. Then Hobble said that they could combine Kazura's canned food and their food to cook a meal for him. He was stunned that such a thing could be done, and began to appreciate Hobble even more, because now he could eat with everyone. Kazura agreed, but said that no one should taste his food. Hobble said they would start cooking for him tomorrow. When he left, Kazura thought that it was really better for him to eat with everyone. And Hobble thought that now he had managed to make Marie live freely. When Marie was cooking, she suddenly dropped the potatoes, and Kazura thought it was because of him, so he decided to take a walk. At the same time, Marie began to apologize for it. Hobble said that she needed to try to leave the house. She agreed, but she didn't like deceiving Kazura. She really didn't want to lie, but Hobble told her not to think about it, and Marie agreed. After that, she continued cooking, but she didn't think it would taste the same. Marie tried the prepared food and got carried away, so Hobble told her not to eat much. Kazura remembered that he had forgotten about the sample. They arrived at the place at night, but Kazura was very tired. Nelson asked if he could bring everything he was going to. Kazura said that he took even more, and asked to prepare a room with windows to the courtyard. He decided that tomorrow they would immediately begin rebuilding the granary and asked for people to be allocated for this. Nelson agreed and said they would use the servants. This made Kazura tense. Nelson immediately corrected himself and said that they would mobilize 600 soldiers. Kazura refused because soldiers can be busy and they can't rely on soldiers every time. Nelson agreed with him and said he would like to start with the affected areas first. Nelson said they had already made 30 water wheels. Zirconium replied that artisans work better because of the payment. Kazura went to rest. They offered him a bath, and he agreed. In the room, he had the feeling that he had forgotten something. In the hot water, the young man relaxed, but then he began to think about whether there would be enough fertilizers. He decided to eat ice cream after a bath. He suddenly screamed because the ice cream was exactly what he had forgotten about. The guard was scared by his behavior and told the maid to follow him. When Isaac and Havel opened the door to say they were going home, they saw Kazura over the ice cream crate. The young man asked them to turn on the refrigerator, and they fearfully agreed. Isaac called gasoline water that smells bad. Kazura explained to him that it was a special water charged with the spirit of power. Isaac was surprised by this. While they were refueling the generator, Kazura warned them not to bring gasoline to the fire. Isaac asked what would happen if you did that, and Kazura explained that you could die from it. Then they started the generator, which was noisy. Isaac said that someone's stomach was rumbling, and it sounded like a transport from Gracia. Kazura said he wanted to hide it and asked Isaac to find someone to do it. Isaac said he would personally guard the generator, but Kazura told him to rest. Havel suggested that Isaac take turns guarding the generator, and Isaac agreed. Kazura was grateful to them, but they could get sick. Despite this, he agreed with them. But before that, he decided to give them doping, which he passed off as a secret medicine that restores strength. Isaac and Havel were stunned. Kazura said that this was his gratitude to them for all that they had done. He explained to them how to open the bottles. Isaac thanked him, and Kazura said it would be their secret. After that, they drank the medicine, which they considered delicious. They went on duty. Kazura said he was relying on them. After that, he returned to his ice cream, which was frozen, and began to eat it joyfully. In the morning, Era noticed that Liz woke up in a good mood. She confirmed this and said that she had become better with a sword. Era said that soon she would be able to match Zirconium or Isaac. Liz told her not to talk nonsense, because Isaac should not be underestimated, but Zirconium is much stronger than him. Era said Liz needed experience. She told me that Zirconium returned yesterday with Kazura, and they brought a lot of things. Liz replied that this was what Kazura had mentioned. Liz said that Kazura was going to restore the northern and western fields, which is why the things he brought were needed. It was hard for them to believe that this would save them from the drought. Liz said they also use a water wheel that draws water from the river. Era had never heard of such a thing before. She was curious about what Kazura had brought, but there were other mysteries. She said there was a strange sound coming from Kazura's room. They wanted to check, but Isaac wouldn't let them in. And soon after that, a scream was heard from that room. Liz was excited about this, and thought about the fact that Kazura was with a woman. Era said that nothing really happened, but Kazura was acting strangely. She said that Kazura didn't even have breakfast because he was tired, and Liz decided to ask him about it at lunch. She asked about her schedule today. Era said there would be a few visitors. 2 merchants and 2 nobles were supposed to come to Liz. It bothered Liz because the schedule was too tight. Era added that another meeting with McGregor was scheduled. Liz asked when she would have free time, and Era replied that only after dinner. She thought about how Kazura would be busy too, and decided not to rush him. At the same time, Kazura arrived at the withered fields, and they began work on restoring the fields. After that, they wanted to restore all the hysteria, so he began a full-scale leadership. The girl's name was Maruyama, and she worked as a supply clerk at a chain department store. They had a visitor who had not been here for a long time. It was Sino who introduced himself as the head of land reclamation. He always bought everything from them in large volumes. William was told to help the guest, and the girl was stressed. She approached him to help with the selection, but saw that he was considering a manual on how to eat insects correctly. The girl was stunned and thought that Shino did not look at all like someone who grows crops. He put the book down because he was here for other purchases. Their misunderstanding only intensified. Isaac said that the groups had already been assembled and the fertilizer was ready, so Kazura said that it was time to start. First they plowed the ground, and then they added some soil from the bags and mixed everything. The contents of one bag had to be scattered over a certain area. All the group needed to move forward evenly. They needed to do this with all the fields in the northern area. Everyone was stunned. Kazura calculated that each group would have to scatter 4 bags per day. The young man said that the Easter family would pay for this work, and they would pay extra for good work. He left this job to Isaac and Harvin and went to the river. Havel said that the power of the medicine that Kazura gave them is simply frightening. He and Isaac didn't understand how Kazura could be tired with such medicine. They decided that they would be grateful to him until they knew the reason. Havel thought it would be bad if something happened to Kazura even though he was a god. If Kazura had continued in the same vein, then Mari's position would have become even greater. Havel said that Kazura was tired anyway, so they needed to not overload him and adjust the work schedule. Isaac agreed. They decided to provide Kazura with a good rest and try even harder to reduce the burden on Kazura. Havel was ready to work hard for this. Isaac replied that he was relying on him. Zirconia said their fields looked just awful because the crops dried up quickly. Only those that grew by the water survived, but there were few left. Kazura replied that they could save only a few crops with water. He thought it would be better to leave fertilizers from Japan as a last resort, because it would be too noticeable. Zirconium said they would build a water channel for the next harvest. Kazura agreed. After all, nothing will grow in dry soil. He asked why they couldn't plant seeds by watering the soil with water. The woman replied that this was only possible if the temperature dropped, because the heat would boil the seeds in the soil. Kazura thought that he needed to learn more about agriculture. He suggested starting with the existing water channels, and then asked how cold it was here in winter. She replied that the water freezes and a lot of snow falls. Kazura said it was a good idea, and Zirconia replied that she would be happy to discuss the details. The young man replied that this was just a guess, but Zirconium was still interested in seeing the result. They came to a dried-up river, and Kazura said that a water wheel could be installed here. He said that we need to dig a deep channel for water. Zirconium told the soldiers to dig holes for the water wheel, and they also need people to assemble the wheel and the wooden channel. Kazura said that they only need one water wheel here to direct the water, and they use the rest in other areas. After that, they could come up with other improvements, because the wheels could not only pump water. Kazura said they could make a mill that would be more productive than using human power. Zirconia was surprised. He asked about how they grind grain to make bread, and Zirconia explained everything to him. Kazura thought it was primitive. He thought the grain might burn from the fire, but Zirconium said that immediately after heating, the grain is thrown to the ground and trampled. She said it was fun. Kazura asked if Zirconium was familiar with such work. She told him that she was born a peasant, so she often helped in the fields. This surprised Kazura. He thought that Zirconium really looked like a peasant woman, and wondered how old she was. He asked if Zirconium had forgotten how to grind grain. She replied that she had not done this for 10 years, and she still needed to test her skills. Kazura estimated that she was 26 years old. He thought that Liz looked like a teenager, so Zirconia should have given birth to her at 11, unless she was Nelson's second wife. He broke out of his thoughts and suggested building a threshing machine to lower the price of food. Zirconia replied that she couldn't wait to see the thresher. The workers said they would like to know how to assemble the thresher, and Kazura apologized to them for forgetting about it. After a while, the water wheel was built, and it remained to let them water. Kazura turned the wheel, and the water appeared. Zirconia was surprised to realize how the inhabitants of Gracia draw water from the canal. Suddenly, Kazura realized that something was wrong with the water. He walked over to the water and muttered that it might be a problem. Zirconia immediately tensed up and asked him what the problem was. He awkwardly explained to her that the wheel's rotation speed was uneven. Zirconia was stunned. The young man explained to her that the wheel should rotate at a constant speed, but some parts were made incorrectly. Zirconia immediately exclaimed that she was very sorry, so she would immediately get the artisans to redo it. Kazura agreed, because if you leave everything as it is, the wheel will wear out. After that, Kazura told me to move on. He wondered why this was the case if they used the same blueprints as in the village. He assumed that the details did not work out because the tools were not suitable, because in Grisey he used tools from Japan. He decided that he would deal with this issue later, but now he would have to use this wheel. He decided that the water should flow faster to save the crops. He suggested stopping the production of parts, and they will continue when they figure out the problem. Zirconium agreed. She regretted that it had happened because she was responsible for it. Kazura replied that everything was fine, and it wasn't just her fault. Although they had one water wheel, it was unfinished. Kazura thought that he would not be able to rest soon. At the mansion, Zirconia apologized to Noor for distracting him, but she had a request. He thanked him for the visit and asked about the request. She asked if Marie worked in their house. Noor agreed and asked about what happened. Zirconia explained that Kazura wanted her to work for him, and Zirconia was willing to pay for it. Noor was surprised and suggested that she buy someone else or borrow Marie because Marie was his illegitimate child. Zirconia was stunned that Noor was trying so hard to take care of her daughter, but did not set her free. The man replied that his family would not accept Marie. Zirconia indignantly said that Marie would be better off free. Noor hesitated and began to mutter something. That's when Zirconia realized that Havel wanted to put Marie under the protection of Kazura. The woman agreed with Noor to take Marie for a while because it was already good that Marie would become Kazura's cook. Zirconia said that Marie would live with them, and if Kazura wanted to keep Marie, Noor would not refuse him. He agreed. Then Zirconia smiled and apologized for her request, and then said that she wanted to pack Marie's things. Noor said he would have them cooked. The boards were brought to Kazura on a cart, and he thanked him for it. Kazura wanted to make a shelter for the generator out of them. He thought that it would be necessary to make a shed for storing fuel. He said he hoped for loot and decided to bring tools. He hoped that tomorrow he would be able to rely on Loot's help and told him to rest, but Loot refused. Loot also wanted to help Kazura, which made him surprised. Isaac was also surprised by Loot's willingness to help. Kazura thought about how Loot and Isaac looked alike. Isaac said that Loot would not reveal Kazura's secrets, because he already knows that Kazura is a Glacier, so there would be no harm in his help. After that, Kazura agreed to help from Loot, and he was very happy. After a while, Kazura brought the tools and apologized for waiting. He said they could handle the tools quickly. Loot and Isaac were surprised. While the generator rattled, Kazura sawed the boards. The assistants were surprised watching this. Kazura asked them to bring him another board. He decided not to waste time and asked Isaac to assemble the wall, saying that he would show Tom how to use the tool. He said that with this tool, Isaac would be able to hammer a nail quickly. He showed Isaac how to use the tool, and Isaac was surprised. He said he understood how wonderful the instrument was. Kazura warned him not to point the instrument at people. It's dangerous. After a while, they finished, and Kazura got tired. Isaac agreed and said that they did it quickly, and the tools from the world of the gods are amazing. Looking around, Kazura realized that no one had come to the noise. Loot agreed and said that it was hard not to notice such a noise. Havel came up to them and asked if they were finished. Kazura agreed and said that he had already told him about it. He replied that he did not hear it because of the noise, he did not hear it, and he was busy not letting anyone in here. Havel asked him to warn him about this next time. Kazura became depressed and apologized for it. Havel started up and said that there was no need to apologize, because only a couple of people had come. Marie ran into the room and apologized for being slow. Zirconia replied that the girl shouldn't have been in such a hurry. She explained that this was Marie's room now, and the girl herself was Kazura's cook. Marie was stunned. Zirconia explained that Marie had been hired for work, and she thanked her. Her salary was 1,000 R. Marie was surprised, and Zirconia said that it was the salary of a rookie guard. She said that a girl's salary could be increased for a good job, and also told Marie to keep herself clean. Having said that, she left. She came to her office to work. At the same time, in the Havel family mansion, he himself stood in front of his father and said that he had never helped Marie to be bought. The father replied that Marie would not have been taken away then, so he thinks Havel ordered Marie to take care of Kazura. Havel replied that they had other maids, so Marie would only cook for Kazura. The father asked Havel about why he took Marie with him then. Havel replied that he had chosen someone whose absence would not harm the return of his father and brother from the lands of Gregoria. He added that his older brother hates Marie, which is why she became attached to Havel. My father noticed that Havel had become eloquent. He decided to consider the incident just a failure and give Marie for temporary use. His father wondered if Havel remembered his promise. The promise was that, if Havel makes a career in the army and reaches a good position, then his father will give him Marie. The father told Havel to end his intrigues, because then he could break the promise. Havel flinched at these words. Noticing this, the father said that he would not break his promise and decided to end it. Before that, he told Havel that this time his methods were rude, but not bad at all. He told his son to try to do better next time. This angered Havel. He apologized and left, slamming the door. In the morning, Kazura came to the living room. He felt better this morning because a healthy sleep did him good. Last night he had a very sweet chocolate mint drink that he chilled in the fridge. Nelson, Zirconia, and Liz were sitting at the table with him. Nelson called out to his wife, but she did not answer. Then he raised his voice and called his wife again, saying that Liz was calling her. Zirconia apologized and asked what was the matter. Liz suggested she take a day off because Zirconia looked tired. The woman replied that she was fine, she just had a lot of work to do. Liz asked how long she had slept, and Zirconia replied that it was only an hour. Kazura and Nelson were stunned and remained silent. Then Liz jumped up from her seat and asked for permission to help Zirconium. She could go and check on the progress of the work. Zirconia replied that Liz had an appointment today and asked who she was with. Era replied that the meetings were scheduled with a nobleman and a merchant. This was the second consecutive meeting with them. Liz said that she would not really like to meet with the Nebel merchant. The parents were unhappy that at first Liz did not call this merchant by name. Zirconia said she wouldn't mind handing the job over to Liz. She asked Kazura if he would mind if Liz accompanied him to work today. Kazura agreed. Liz told Kazura that she would try very hard to be useful to him today. Kazura told her to relax and not be so strict with herself, because she doesn't have to do anything difficult. This made Liz happy. Liz asked Ira to help prepare everything, and she agreed. Zirconia said that she assigned Ira and Marie to serve Kazura. Both girls were surprised, and Zirconia apologized to them for forgetting to say it. Liz said that Ira was her maid. Zirconia replied that it would stay that way, she just wanted Ira to just guide Marie for now. Zirconia told Era that a room had already been prepared for her at the mansion, and then she would be given a salary contract. Era was surprised, but agreed. Kazura thought that Zirconium had solved a lot of issues quickly, but something was bothering him. As she walked down the hallway, Ira thought about the room in the mansion. It bothered Ira that Zirconia wanted her to live like some kind of concubine. She thought she had just imagined it. When Era was braiding Liz's hair, Liz asked why Era was chosen to help Kazura, because he already has a maid. Era replied that she had quite a lot of work experience, as many as 11 years, and she could have been chosen because she and Kazura are close in age. Liz thought about it, and Era had another guess. Ira said that Liz's mother might want to establish a connection between them. Liz agreed with her. She was sure that her mother wanted to interest her in this. This was already the case a few days ago. There was only one thing she couldn't understand. Liz wondered which country Kazura was from, because there was no need to hide such a thing. Liz assumed he was a nobleman from Valverde. They began to think about which country Kazura might be a noble from. Then the topic switched to the fact that Zirconium hates Valver. Liz said that Valver attacked her native country. Ira was aware of several rumors that a few months before the war with Valver, several bandits attacked the village near Hysteria. Zirconium was the only survivor. After that, she volunteered for the Hysteria army, and before the war, she married Nelson. Era overheard it by accident, and it was just a rumor. Liz told her that she had been interrupted, and Era apologized. Zirconia said that Ira would now work as well, and she would have to help Kazura, and Ira's salary had been increased. Ira realized that she would have new responsibilities. Zirconia said that Era would not be able to terminate the employment contract for the last 10 years. She will serve Lisa and Kazura alternately. She told Era to sign the document. Zirconia said that Era would be able to seek advice if needed. Over time, Marie would get used to work, so it would be easier for Ira. Ira tensed when she suspected something. This was confirmed because Zirconia said that Ira needed to bring Kazura and Liz together. Ira was stunned by this assignment. Zirconia said that Kazura and Liz get along well, so they need to be paired up. Zirconia said Ira would handle it. Ira tensed up a lot. She asked about what would happen to Iser, because he had managed to make a good impression on Nelson. After that, Ira realized that she was now criticizing Zirconium. Zirconia said Isaac is good, but Kazura is much better. She then said that the problem was that Ira didn't know Kazura well, so she apologized to Ira. Zirconia said it was top secret, so Era needed to sign the document, but Era could refuse if she wasn't interested. Era signed the document anyway, and Zirconium decided to continue. She told me that Kazura is actually a Gracier. Era more or less knew this legend, and Zirconia said that it was like a legend, only it happened recently. Era realized that Kazura was busy restoring the fields and offered to help them. Zirconia said that in peacetime it would have been enough, but now it's not enough, because they may not be ready for war with Valver. Zirconia said that the war would definitely start because Valver is such a country, but everything would be fine, because Kazura has useful knowledge and tools. She said it would be good for them to receive the blessing of the Force. It was a blessing, giving monstrous power, which is given to few people. Ira silently looked at Zirconium, and she said that let the plan for Lisa and Kazura be their secret. She told Era to just give Lisa a little push towards Kazura and then let Era go. When she left, Zirconia thought that if Kazura fell in love with Liz, then he would be connected to them. At the same time, in the fields, Kazura was telling the workers that they would also be working in the fields today. Liz was with them, but instead of Era, she had another maid with her. Kazura confidently asked the workers to continue to scatter the contents of the bag. He said they would finish all this work in half a month. Kazura thought that under Liz's gaze, he wanted to do his best. He asked the employees if they had any questions. One asked if they would be allowed to go home when it was time for the vow. Kazura said no, because they were provided with water. The young man said that all expenses are covered by the Easter house, so they can be sure that they will not be deducted from their salary. He told the workers to take breaks every half hour and drink on time because they work under the scorching sun, so meals and breaks will increase work efficiency. Kazura said he was relying on them. He looked at the plan and thought that the second water wheel should be put in another place. He hoped the details would be finished by the end of the day. Liz told him that there was a lot of work to do, and asked about the fact that crops heal if you scatter the contents of the bags. Kazura replied that only live crops can be saved, and fertilizers act as medicine. He said that there are other ways to improve the soil, but they are not so fast, especially since he used a special fertilizer prepared by him. Liz looked at him thoughtfully and thought that Kazura had brought things from his country. She thought about the fact that it was only 3 days to get here from there, and she was wondering where it was. Liz knew that Zirconium would never ask for help from a man from Valverde, and Kriratz was too far away. Kazura said that it was time to sow seeds and asked about which seeds are better to sow. Liz said she was not familiar with agriculture. She wasn't interested in lectures about it. She said it might get colder this year, so winter potatoes and beans would be good. Round onions and some types of leafy vegetables would also be suitable. Liz said that these beans are dried, and then the oil is squeezed out of them. For this they are put in a wooden box. Kazura thought about how it looked like soybean oil, but it took too much effort. He thought that a centrifuge could be used for this. Liz told him she didn't know much, but Kazura replied that her knowledge wasn't bad. He asked if Liz often went out on the city street. Liz replied that she goes there for walks because it's interesting. Kazura asked if she knew any food stalls. Liz replied that she knew a lot and suggested that they go for a walk together later. She was glad that Kazura agreed and said that she would try to be useful to him. The young man thanked her. He thought that Liz was very sociable. After some time, they installed a wheel that was better than the first one. Watching him work, Liz was delighted. Kazura invited Liz to have lunch with him, and the servants set the table. Mari came up to Kazura and put stew out of a jar for him, and Kazura told her to rest. Liz offered the young man to try the meat, and he did not refuse her. After tasting it, he said that the meat was delicious, and he would like to know the recipe. He wanted to offer Liz a taste of the meat, but there were no empty plates nearby. Liz replied that she would just try another time. She thought that Kazura would like it better if she cared. Kazura said he would serve her soup next time, and Liz realized that he didn't care. Kazura mostly ate grains, so Liz couldn't figure out which country he was from, but her parents trusted him, so he was rich. She decided to give Kazura a little push towards her, and wiped his lips with a napkin, saying that there was food there. At night, from his window, Kazura noticed Zirconium, and she nodded to him. He went down to her, and Zirconia told him that she couldn't sleep and thought that admiring the stars could improve his mood. She said it was perfect for a change of scenery. Kazura said that the stars are better visible from the roof. The Zirconium did not go to the roof because it is difficult to climb the stairs to the roof. But she knew that when she decided to admire the stars here, she met Kazura. He was surprised and confused. She asked Kazura to taste his tea, and he agreed. He thought that sometimes it is useful to carry a tea set with you. The young man poured tea for both of them to relax. Zirconia said that when she looks at the stars, everything seems like a bad dream to her, even though it wasn't like that. She said some saying that Kazura wanted to know the meaning of. Zirconia said that looking at the stars can make you feel like you want to go home. Kazura realized that this saying was about homesickness. Few people could understand this. Zirconia smiled at him and thanked Kazura for the relaxing tea. She stood up to leave and said she felt better. The young man said that next time he could make her tea, which would help her fall asleep. They said goodbye. While drinking tea, Kazura looked at the stars and thought that the starry sky was very beautiful. He remembered looking at the stars with Valletta and wondered what the moon was like then. In the middle of a small room, 3 people sat at a square table and looked at the drawings of the building, and 2 guards watched the negotiation process. Gluing another piece of paper on a map with water channels, Sheena suggested installing the following water wheels in the east and south, specifying whether he could count on Lisa's help. Zirconia nodded affirmatively and said that changes had already been made to the girl's schedule, and the man sitting opposite nodded gratefully for the help and said that everything was going very well at the moment. Kazura smiled happily and said that thanks to Lisa, who is now taking a bath, the work efficiency has increased greatly, and the installed water wheels have facilitated the flow of water. Nelson was ashamed to admit how surprised he was by what was happening, and Zirconium could not have imagined that Lisa could be so popular with the townspeople. Having somewhat moved away from work issues, the man with short hair asked the only lady at the table if she had a good rest and how she was feeling. The girl, a little confused, said that she was fine now. Sheena asked the two standing guards if he could be sure that the use of fertilizers would continue, to which he received nods of agreement, so the problem with the fields will be solved soon. The face of the man who won the lottery became serious, and a hinting question about the state of the finances of the land sounded. Nelson sighed uncertainly and said that he would try to come up with something, but if things continued like this, they would be forced to suspend other projects and reduce the budget. This was followed by the logical question that if the problem with food is solved, will something change? But unfortunately, if you do not find money, it will be difficult to achieve significant improvements. Well, that, logically. The men, as if forgetting about the people around them, plunged into creating a plan to increase the budget of their lands. Nevertheless, this is a primary problem that should be solved. After hearing about mining, Shin, out of curiosity, asked if they mined gold, to which he received the answer that, unfortunately, gold is mined only near the capital. Leaning on the back of a chair and staring at the papers, Kazura was lost in thought. There was no sea nearby. Because of this, it is impossible to establish salt production, and the production of lime mortar here has some difficulties. After much thought, the guy dug into his pockets and said that he had come up with the best and fastest way to earn money. He took out several shiny power stones from a bag, which were souvenirs bought at a cheap store, and asked how much they could be sold for. This action caused a flood of surprise. Nelson exclaimed in surprise that he had never seen such a beautiful shape. They could undoubtedly be sold well. This surprised Shin, because his grandmother in one of the shops, as it turned out, tried to fool him. Speaking of stones, the guy was wondering which ones could be sold for more, those that are dark or transparent. The answer was received immediately. Transparent obsidian appears on the market less often, so it will be more profitable to sell it. After receiving a satisfactory answer, the young man continued to rummage in the bag, putting a carefree smile on his face. After laying out a small pile of transparent obsidian balls on the table, Sheena announced a sale. His actions caused another torrent of shock, from which everyone present froze. Someone's trembling voice tried to ask a question about where such a quantity came from, or where the name came from, but Kazura interrupted the speaker with his apologies and requests to forget what was said, because these are just balls from the kingdom of the gods called glass. Nelson and Zirconium looked at the product with interest, but the man immediately appreciated the prospects, saying that they can solve the financial problem with this, but because of the rarity of the goods, it may be difficult to sell them and there will be questions about suppliers. Thinking about it, Sheena said that it would probably be better to sell colored glass, to which he received a legitimate question from Zirconium whether this happens. Saying that the multicolored glass looks more like what they sell in their country, he also said that he would buy one the next time he went to his country. After asking about the colors, he got a logical answer about classic supplies to the market. Putting the balls back into the bag, the guy concluded that they had found a solution to the problem of urgent expenses. But also, to solve the problem of the population, it was necessary to expand agricultural land. After an offer from Kazura to make a new tool called a hand pump, he received 2 looks in which he read a dumb question. The number of places where wheels can be installed is limited, but the pump is small, although water can only be pumped from a shallow depth, and a person is needed to press the lever. Zirconium immediately cheered up with a new idea and announced that they would prepare all the necessary materials, and the staff too. In turn, Nelson asked if this pump could be installed in narrow places, such as, for example, a tunnel. Showing the approximate dimensions of the pump with his hands, Sheena replied that it was most likely possible. This was followed by another question about interesting ways to use pumps, for example in mines. The question was very surprising, so Kazura was wondering why they would use the tool in such a place. The man did not lose his head and explained that during excavations in the mountains, groundwater is rarely found. If the volume is large, then you have to abandon the mine. Sheena nodded. People in this world wanted to be able to mine flooded ore. Nelson continued his stream of thoughts on how to increase ore production in mountainous areas or tunnels. But Kazura was only surprised at how thoughtful the man's ideas were. That's what the ruler of the mainland means. Zirconi suddenly switched to another question, asking Kazura what kind of good idea had come to his mind. Recalling how recently he said that if everything worked out, they would be able to improve people's nutrition. The first thing the guy said was a glacier. This was followed by the logical question of whether they know what it is. After receiving a negative response, Sheena explained that it was a kind of ice warehouse. In winter, we cut out the ice, and in summer, we take it out and use it. Zirconia was afraid whether they would be able to keep it until the summer so that it would not melt, but her fears were overshadowed by the guy's words that there is a way to store ice. Nelson really turned out to be a very smart man and immediately realized that this way, they would be able to store fish and meat in this place, to which he received an approving nod from Kazura. Then there was a deeper explanation of the topic. The idea is to accumulate ice blocks and then sell them in the summer, and if you manage to create a refrigerator, then the demand for ice will not run out, and it can be put in the house. The only problem is that you need a pond to produce ice, but if you dig it in the field area, it will be difficult to achieve a good harvest. Therefore, it is better to build a new reservoir in the mountains. Kazura said that he would definitely go with everyone next time to choose a place, and when he returned to his kingdom, he would look after the glacier there. Next, a rediscussion of the water wheels began, or rather work on them. Kazura said that he would like to visit the workshop, but because of this, he did not notice Zirconium's gaze directed at him. The knight slowly took all the corridors of the castle in its arms, and in one of the rooms a girl was tossing and turning on a bed by the window. Rolling over again, the thought flashed through her mind that she couldn't sleep. Era constantly replayed in her head the hostess's request to bring Lisa and Kazura together, but apparently, the girl herself was very worried about it. The maid had no choice but to agree, but there was a slightly different problem. The two of them are almost never alone, and the girl couldn't talk to Sheen no matter how much she tried. Although it seems that the couple will get together sooner or later, but it's very difficult to come every time with a report about what is not happening. After getting out of bed, Ira decided that it was worth drinking tea to fall asleep. Opening the door to the kitchen, the girl froze abruptly and saw in front of her a guy who was mumbling to himself a tray that it was worth drinking an echinacea. Ira immediately panicked, because she didn't expect anyone else to be here, and the fact that she screamed knocked her out of order. Kazura, on the other hand, seemed to feel comfortable and, after greeting, asked if the girl had also come for boiling water. Embarrassed even more and wrapped in her shawl, the girl began to apologize for the inappropriate appearance and explained that she had come to drink a cup of tea. This reaction scared Shin very much and made him freeze for a couple of seconds from shock. But after that, the guy suddenly thought about it. After putting a cup of hot tea in front of the embarrassed girl, Kazura heard thanks, but immediately said that it was not worth saying this, because he himself came here to make tea. After taking a sip of tea, the girl said that it was very tasty, which pleased Kazuru, and he handed her a tray of sweets, offering to try it. After seeing the contents of the plate, Ira asked if it was a cookie. Nodding in response, Sheena concluded that there are cookies in this country too. Taking a small bite, the maid blushed from the indescribable sweetness that aroused her taste buds. The next reaction was a slight surprise that the cookies were different. Panicking a little, Kazura replied that he had cookies with berries and nuts, with liqueur and salty ones. It is immediately clear that the girl was very attracted to cookies. She started asking about the composition, and when she heard about the butter, which she did not know, she received a detailed answer that it was well-beaten animal milk. Smiling happily at Era's energetic reaction, Sheena said that next time he would look for a recipe and be able to cook it and they could do it together, to which the girl only squeezed a piece of her clothes. The girl, with a slight stutter, agreed to the proposal and said that milk could be drunk from Miyagi, who are kept on the territory of the mansion. Also fired up by this idea, Sheena announced that he was returning to his country after tomorrow, and after his return to Hysteria, they could do it on any convenient day for Era. At the end, the dialogue went more smoothly. Kazura said that he usually comes here at this time, and if the girl wants, she can come and he will make her herbal tea. Era also announced that she would bring sweets. The next day, the company of 3 people, as promised, decided to visit the workshop. In the workshop itself, work was already in full swing, and the knocks of a hammer on wood could be heard. Shin's eyes sparkled with admiration when he saw the carpentry workshop. When he saw a man who was old enough to turn his head to the sides and say something about defective goods, the guy decided that it was the boss. The man sitting on the chair said that this was just a guess. But those who drilled the wheel blades work in another workshop 2 houses away, but if it's not him, then you should contact the workshop that made the outer parts of the wheel. Having risen together, the arriving guests announced that they would go to another workshop and apologized for the trouble. When the trio were about to leave, the master called out to Zirconium and asked for a favor to say one thing. This request forced everyone to go back, and the head of the workshop began to say that they were artisans and mistakes were unacceptable, so if it was Krupp's fault, then he would personally punish him. And after that, I asked only this time to close my eyes to it. The man's face contorted as if he was about to cry. Krupa's father and his best students lost their lives during the battle, and in his workshop one of the guys lost his life and the other his arm. Only the children of the fallen and their other relatives remained to work in his workshop. Crossing her arms over her chest, Zirconia asked her to continue the story. The man continued. Everyone knew that orders from the Lord had the highest priority and that it was wrong to be careless and in a hurry, but the man clenched his hands, which were lying on his lap, into fists. The carpenter's loud voice sounded like thunder throughout the workshop. They also had a limit. Many craftsmen were sent to the battlefield to erect and repair weapons. The oldest simply did not return from this campaign. The man's voice began to tremble. It takes 20, maybe 30 years to become a good carpenter. Now there is no one to replace the fallen in battle in hysteria. These words caused the Lord to sigh heavily. Noticing Lisa's mother's reaction, she interrupted her, saying that the boss's words were correct. Artisans take on an overwhelming burden for the benefit of their lands, so you shouldn't blame them. But Zirconium wasn't even going to do that. The words thrown in at the right time made all the artisans feel a sense of gratitude and praise towards Lisa, while Zirconium was left behind. Dissatisfied, crossing her arms and legs, the girl said that she already understood everything and was not going to punish anyone once everything ended well and the reason was found and eliminated. The joyful shouts of gratitude and the shouting of their heroine's name made Zirconium sigh wearily, but the tire behind only mentally tried to support the girl. So night slowly entered the domain. It turned out that every workshop is currently short of staff, hence the marriages. Zirconia, with a slightly displeased face, noted that the situation was understandable, but it was also her fault that she had not properly controlled it. But there's nothing you can do about it now. The only question is whether she will be able to provide the tools to improve labor efficiency. Even while saying this, Zirconia looked depressed, which made Shin support her. Because of the words of support and assurance that they would definitely succeed, Zirconia smiled and thanked them. Although not completely, it definitely helped to calm the girl down, which caused a relieved sigh from Kazura. After that, Kazura moved on to other urgent matters. It turned out that blacksmith shops have the same problem as carpenters. The problem should also be solved after the introduction of more advanced machines. There are also problems with digging wells. Due to the fact that the brown sandy soil mixes with water, clothes turn reddish when washed, and cooking on such water threatens with a terrible taste of food and stomach problems. Nelson thanked Kazura for finding a way out of the situation because it is impossible to lay a channel to any place. At that moment, the guy himself was thinking about how to improve his knowledge in the field of digging wells. You will need to find a master in Japan. Recalling the incident with the artisans this morning, Sheena asked if Lise often visits them, since they have such a good relationship. The man with the short haircut suggested that most likely the fact is that Lisa uses dirt instead of soap to care for her skin and hair. This interested Shin and he asked if she was better at soap. Nelson explained that it is indeed better for some purposes. If he wants to try, the man will ask Lisa to postpone a little, but the guy refused, referring to the fact that he would ask for it another time. After asking Zirconia if she also uses dirt, like Lisa, Sheena received the answer that she was not interested in this, but maybe she would try it sometime. The next day, when the sun rose high enough, Sheena checked the notes made last night on the way to the carts. As soon as his gaze fell on the carts, he concluded that they would soon be on their way. Kazura said that this time it took him longer, and, when he returned, he would bring a lot of things, and at this time, Lisa should look after the construction of water wheels, to which the girl agreed and wished a safe road. The girl suddenly took something out of her pockets and handed it to the tire. It turned out to be a bracelet with red embroidery. A little embarrassed, Lisa said that she wasn't sure if it had turned out well. Thanking the girl for such a gift, Kazura did not even notice the stunned look of the knight passing by, but it did not escape Lisa's gaze. However, she just smiled, hinting that it was not worth saying something. Having finished all his business, Sheena decided that it was time to go anyway. Calling Marie after him, the guy finally saw Isaac's slightly strange condition, but when asked if everything was okay, he received only silence. Well, it's time to go anyway. Stretching, the girl said that now it was time to head to the place where the water wheel was assembled. There will still be some things to buy on the way home, so it's worth finishing early. The maid looked attentively at her mistress, and it was clear from her face that she wanted to ask something but did not dare, and then Lise herself asked what was the matter. Era started talking about Isaac, but Lisa abruptly interrupted her, saying that there was nothing she could do about it, and it was much more honest than stalling for time. Nevertheless, the maid was confused. Still, giving Kazura a lover's bracelet in front of Isaac was a little cruel. In a love bracelet, the main meaning depends on the color. White is a declaration of love, red is a very broad meaning, black is a bracelet for adults. But even after such words, Lisa was convinced that it was much better than answering no to Isaac's confession. Besides, in this way, the reputation of the knight and the father will not suffer. The girl has already decided that she will save herself for Kazura. As for her future husband, so, of course, she needs to find out about his past as soon as possible. Still, these two really got closer over the last few days of working together. As they say, the outer moat will never overflow. The maid Lisa agreed, but still said that Isaac was sorry. Catching the displeased look of her lady heir on herself, she abruptly began to justify that she did not mean anything like that. To this response, she received only a sigh from Lisa and instructions to get to work as soon as possible. The evening crept up too quickly and unnoticed. Thanking everyone for their hard work, Kazura got out of the cart. Of course, he is used to traveling back and forth, but the trips are still quite long. Nevertheless, the first thoughts after the trip were about how Valletta was doing, because it had already been 10 days after his departure. A light breeze blew, which made him shudder a little, and when Shin's gaze fell on the village of Grisey, his face turned pale. What happened here? The man standing in the doorway to receive a basket of vegetables from the girl who came with her looked in surprise in the direction of the fleeing lady. Surprise and shock struck the young Kazuru. He couldn't believe it with his own eyes. What could have happened in a couple of days? What happened here? The entrance to the village was already fenced with a wooden fence, and guards stood next to the burning lanterns. The girl happily ran up to Shin and greeted him at the very entrance. Surprise still hasn't let go of the guy. He had slightly miscalculated Valletta's tenacity. The girl, after the tire's reaction, reported that even with such successes, they are now behind schedule because there are not enough building materials and tools. Kazura raised his hand in a comforting gesture, saying that the girl could always rely on him, and through the edge of the jacket there was a bracelet, which attracted Valletta's attention, but she said nothing and only offered to go into the house. Joining the dinner at the table of Valletta's family, Kazura began discussing issues of hysteria with the head of the family. Still, if he were another 6 months late, it would be too late, because fresh water in the city is transported in the same way as in the village, and, taking into account the structure of the city, it will not be possible to send it to all districts. The man sighed after eating and announced that he was going to the night watch. The words that Isaac's soldiers were now standing at the entrance did not calm him down. You never know what can happen. Nevertheless, some doubts crept into Kazura's mind. This has been happening a lot lately, and it seems to him that in this way the father is just taking care. Remembering the hug that Sheena shared with Valletta, he assumed that she liked him, but the girl sitting in front of him was only 15 years old. In his country, she would have gone to high school, not to mention that he was 25. Looking at the girl in embarrassment, the guy caught her attention, and suddenly Valletta raised her voice. The instruments in her hands rang slightly from the shaking due to the excitement. Remembering about the bracelet that was still on the guy's hand, the girl put a little emphasis on it. She didn't need to ask Kazura himself to inform her that it was a gift from Nelson's daughter. Removing the bracelet from his hands, the guy, without thinking, handed it to the interlocutor and handed it into her hands. The look looking at the bracelet in her hands was very strange, upset with a share of indignation, but the girl only said the name of the donor. Without a second thought, Kazura began to praise his new acquaintance, recalling her contribution to the development of the lands and the position among the townspeople. The guy himself believed that the girl was just kind to everyone and therefore sewed a bracelet. Of course, Shin did not notice the pale face of his interlocutor and the hands that continued to shake, clutching his clothes, and only noted that as the daughter of Lord Lise, she probably began to think about marriage, because many aristocrats marry early. Hesitating a bit, Valletta asked if she had said something to Lisa when she handed Kazuru the bracelet. A little not understanding why such a question was asked, Sheena replied that she only asked to take care of herself. Asked if this bracelet carries the meaning of a health charm, the native of Japan received a nod in response. Valletta explained that the very meaning of the bracelet is to try to stay unharmed or something like that, by bringing an understanding of Lisa's actions into Kazura's brain. However, Valletta did not mention one important detail. Returning from his thoughts, Sheena finally turned his attention to the girl sitting across from him, and he was struck by the thought that all he was doing now was praising Lisa. The girl slightly squeezed her small hands on her knees and asked Kazura to buy her more books when he returned home, something about history and special literature. Shin was not surprised by this request, and he immediately decided to find out what topic Valletta was interested in, and reminded that there are already many books here. To this, he received the answer that the girl had already read everything, and the topic was not particularly important to her. When he heard that the girl remembered books on architecture and medicine and even military affairs, the guy was surprised, but Valletta said that this was still not enough. She was still shaking a little, and her voice was barely audible. The phrase that she did not complete was lost somewhere in the silence of space, and smiling, the girl only asked to fulfill her request. Kazura twitched slightly at the pressure. And he immediately promised that he would bring as much as he needed, even a whole mountain. So they calmly continued their dinner, although Valletta's gaze remained the same upset, and the night slowly covered the entire empire. The next morning, the sun's rays broke through the fluffy clouds, and life in the village was already in full swing. On the river, women and girls were rinsing clothes. After squeezing out the remaining parts of the washed clothes, Valletta loaded everything into a wicker barrel and looked around. Her gaze caught on a pair of knights. The girl greeted them, drawing attention to herself. It turned out that one of the knights was Isaac. The guy greeted the girl and apologized for the late arrival and asked if Kazura had already left. Valletta nodded in agreement, and in her memories, she recalled how Kazura had said goodbye to her, saying that he would return tomorrow evening, although after that he would have to leave again. Perhaps Isaac was embarrassed that everyone in their country was blaming the guy for problems that they themselves could not solve, which is why he said that he was doing a lot for their country. Smiling at the girl, the knight said that he sincerely wished that Kazura would not rush anywhere and just rest in the village. The guy himself will help with anything he can. Struck by such sincerity, Valletta pressed her lips into a thin stripe and said that she really had a request for Isaac. Putting her hand to her chest, a fragile, at first glance, girl, with full confidence in her eyes, turned to the knight with a request to teach her martial arts. This request slightly surprised Isaac, because he did not understand why a girl would learn such a thing. The answer was accurate enough to understand that it was a balanced decision. Valletta no longer wanted to be helpless when her village was in trouble. Clenching her small fist, the girl looked into the eyes of the guy standing in front of her with firm determination, and said that she wanted to protect Kazura, and for this, she needed to be able to fight. Although Valletta looked determined to work productively, Isaac just closed his eyes and said that martial arts cannot be learned in one morning. In addition, the methods of protecting people require even more time for training, and he himself cannot constantly stay in the village. Worried, the girl rambled that it would be enough for her if the knight taught her the basics. Still, she can train herself if she finds out how. The knight continued to insist that retraining due to improper training is only more difficult, yes, and, in his opinion, battles are clearly not a sleeping talent in a girl. But Valletta was not going to give up, so she offered Isaac an option that he had to agree to. So they moved to another place. Taking a spear in her hands and putting on the right equipment, the girl set herself up for battle. The guy reminded her about the conditions that if she did not succeed, she would give up this idea, and memories of his request to choose a weapon surfaced in her head. Some time ago, the girl said with confidence that the knight himself should also choose the weapon with which he handles better. Choosing a sword, he went to get the necessary equipment, which the girl was currently wearing. After moving away from each other for a short distance, both participants of the sparring agreed to start. Isaac once again said that he would not attack first, but would give this opportunity to Valletta, but she should block his counterattack. The girl forcefully clutched the spear in her fragile hands, and Isaac caught himself thinking that although there was nothing unusual in appearance, for some reason he clearly had goosebumps on his back. Pushing away his obsessive thoughts, Isaac put up a shield in front of him and told the girl to hit with full force with the clear intention of taking his life. Surprised by these words, Valletta did not back down and took a deep breath. Exhaling and opening her eyes, her gaze changed. What stood in front of Isaac now was not the same fragile girl, but an enraged beast that was ready to attack at any second. Having informed that Valletta was coming, she made a sharp push from the ground and hit Isaac with incredible speed on the shield put forward, which caused a nasty screech. Isaac, who did not expect this, was confused for a second, but the next blow, which was aimed directly at his head, did not allow him to completely lose concentration. Another second, and it could have ended badly. The next blow was also blocked, and the knight, who was now preparing for a serious counterattack, raised his sword over his head. It seemed that the blow was too strong and could cause severe damage to the girl, which made Isaac confused and forgot about protection, for which he paid. Through his dimly returning consciousness, the man heard someone's voice calling him, but the pain in his head did not give him a chance to understand what this voice was saying. An anxious image of Valletta appeared in front of her eyes, trying to understand and assess Isaac's condition at the moment. Touching his broken nose, the knight hissed in pain, but the young girl only continued to apologize and say that she completely forgot to restrain the force of the blow. Abruptly turning to the girl, the guy again said that nothing terrible had happened and that it was much more important. But this thought was immediately lost somewhere in consciousness when Isaac saw a completely healthy girl about to cry. He remembered exactly how the sword hit the girl's hand exactly, and her weapon jumped out of them, but the next second he saw a fist flying at him. It was really dangerous. The first question was whether the girl had received a blessing from Kazura. There was nothing to hide, Valletta nodded. Isaac, still rubbing his bruised nose, said that it was better to say this right away, because even with a training spear you can seriously injure an opponent. Apologizing once again, the girl reminded me about martial arts. Remembering this small detail of their agreement, Isaac admitted defeat, which made the girl shine with happiness. Still, a promise is a promise, and therefore the knight agreed to teach Valletta martial arts, and patted her on the shoulder in honor of this. This slight movement made the girl twitch, and Isaac remembered that she was also injured, although Valletta herself said that it did not hurt so much. The knight turned out to be a bit of an alarmist and immediately started saying that everything happened too suddenly and he was scared. And then he started saying that she should be taken to Kazura immediately, but he was not there, so he did not know what to do. Surprised by such care, the girl repeated once again that she was fine and asked to hide these workouts from Sheen because she did not want to cause him trouble. Surprised by the slightly upset expression on his face, Isaac nodded without a drop of doubt and said that for the sake of Kazura, he would keep quiet about it. Returning to the injury, the guy still asked to examine the injured arm, but Valletta herself said that it was not worth worrying, a little rest and everything would be fine. However, the crunch coming from the hand told a different story. Finding himself in a desperate situation, Isaac only agreed, and mentally clarified what kind of strange power of persuasion. After that, both went to the village. Isaac needed to wash his face, and Valletta promised to give him a towel. A little earlier. Before leaving, Kazura decided to ask Nina, Valletta's friend, how she was feeling, to which he received an answer that the girl had returned to normal and there was no need to worry. With a sigh of relief, the guy noted to himself that Nina was really a very good friend, and how good it was that Valletta herself had returned to normal. Smiling slightly at Kazura's reaction to her words, Nina jokingly noted that Valletta was very lucky and she even envied her a little. For some reason, these words confused Shin, but Nina clearly enjoyed it. Sighing at the fact that he was being fooled by a schoolgirl, by his standards, Kazura asked to be informed if something strange happened, but Nina, without hiding her smile, said that she would continue to keep an eye on her friend. When he reached the exit of the Empire, Kazura sighed. Still, children are very scary. Opening the front door to his house, the guy immediately plunged into business. First, I had to call my father to order more copper and tin, but then it would obviously be difficult to do without a car. The tall building and panoramic windows on the second floor did not really match what was inside. The glassblower's workshop looked very elegant, and there were a lot of different products inside. Stopping at the containers with soft and cruel glass, Kazura began to think about where to start. If you take hard glass, then it can turn out to be nervous when processed. I wonder if it will be possible to sell it in Hysteria. Apologizing, the guy turned to the girl, who apparently worked here, with a request to look at the tools for glass processing, saying that he was doing this for the first time. The girl came up without hesitation, and the first question was how much the young man was willing to spend. They have quite a wide choice. There are burners for solid glass with an oxygen generator, and there are gas stoves. Noting to himself that Kazura himself, in general, did not care what his choice would be, he settled on an oxygen burner, after which the girl offered to explain how to use it. After receiving a full consultation on the operation of the burner, Sheena said that he would take the burner they had looked at and chose an oxygen generator for it. The more expensive, the better. isn't that right? Next, the store employee suggested choosing a stove that is used at the stage of cooling the glass to prevent cracks from appearing on the product itself. However, this did not suit Kazura, as it consumed a lot of electricity. The girl said that in such a case there are other methods, for example, annealing material. This material needs to be poured into a box. You can also put it from under the cookies, and then put the product there. It suited Sheena. Further, the choice was already small. Some additional elements, such as glasses, tweezers. The girl also clarified whether a gas cylinder was needed, but Shin noted that it was worth checking with his father what else he might need. Kazura's further goal was an engineering company. After going inside, he was asked to sit down and wait, but instead the guy began to look at the books in the closet with interest. A few minutes later, the door handle clicked and a middle-aged man in a work shirt entered the room. The man thanked for the visit and repeated the request that Sheena had come with. Thanking the man for responding to his request, he repeated their phone conversation, adding some clarifying details. Nevertheless, to solve the problem with water in the well, it is better to learn the thoughts of a professional. Drawing conclusions from what the tire told, the engineer said that most likely the reason is that the level of dirty water rises due to rains, but if there is no rain at all, then the well will dry up. After thinking about ways to solve the problem, Kazura suggested that it was possible to dig a deeper well, and the engineer added that it was also possible to change the location of the well. After all the decisions made, the man offered to dig a well with the help of their company, but Kajira said that he wanted to do it himself. Still, digging a well is a man's romance. Because of this attitude, the man decided to share with Sheena the nuances of the work and what tools might be needed. So the night crept up unnoticed. Due to the huge fuss, Kazura felt extremely tired, but at the same time he was satisfied that all the planned tasks had been completed. Plans for the next day appeared by themselves. We need to see how to make oil, pick up a generator, and buy a centrifuge. Kazura was distracted from planning his business by a phone call. His father said that everything the guy asked for would be delivered to the house by 10 in the morning. The list was small, but very important: copper, tin, a propane tank, and a metal saw. Thanking for his help, Kazura listened to his father's list of worries about whether he got into any problems, to which his son said that there was nothing serious that could not be handled. After a short period of silence, the father wanted to ask a question about what was happening now, but the words came unsteadily, which caused a slight surprise to Sheena. Interrupting his question for a few words, the father said that it was not important and his son could call him at any time. He will always help. This was even more confusing. What's going on? Meanwhile, night had also fallen in hysteria, but the two girls had not even thought about going to bed yet. Nana indignantly shouted at her friend why she missed the opportunity and did not confess. Confused, and not knowing where to look, Valletta rattled off that she couldn't say it so suddenly. This answer surprised Nana extremely. That is, she could ask him to hug her, but she could not admit her feelings. Valletta had an excuse for that. Then the action of the essential oil helped her. Nana was a very stubborn and straightforward girl. Without mincing words, she suggested to her friend to reuse the oil, but to act much more decisively, but Valletta said that she would be too ashamed. From such actions, she will definitely fall through the ground. Although at first her friend's reaction was too violent, but after looking at the blushing Valletta, Nana asked if everything was exactly all right, and then noted that it was still worth saying. Obviously, if Valletta continues to delay, then Kazuru will take Lisa away, because she has already taken the first step towards this by giving the admirer a red bracelet. It was depressing, because the girl already understood everything perfectly. Although it was dark outside, burning torches solved this problem by surrounding two young girls with warm light, even if their squabbles were not so decent. Nana jumped up from her seat after accusing her friend of not being able to act decisively and suddenly. Pointing a finger at her indecisive friend, Nana decided that they should tell Lisa that this man had already been sold. Although Valletta was confused, she apparently did not fully understand the idea. Back at home, Valletta stood leaning on the table and fixing her gaze on the woven bracelet. She continued to mumble a question about what to do next. The girl was very ashamed, because in the end, succumbing to Nana's pressure, he made a bracelet with a white thread. Although it was very confusing, but the confidence in Valletta's gaze did not decrease. When the bracelet was just ready, Nana said that if Sheena wore this bracelet every day, then no one else would approach him. And if the guy himself knows what these bracelets mean, then Valletta's feelings will reach him. Putting a reassuring hand on her friend's shoulder, Nana conspiratorially said that her friend only needed a little patience. And if Kazura understood the meaning of the bracelet, they could flirt as much as they wanted. Nana was clearly too excited about the idea of setting her friend up with a guy she likes, because then she actively began to talk about requests for a response to the bracelet, and also mentioned that the next one would definitely be with black embroidery. The young lady did not know how to restrain her streams of thoughts at all. Her eyes burned with the power of love, but Valletta's thoughts were already going crazy around the phrase, "to go further." Shaking her head, the girl glanced at her purse. She took out a book about essential oils, followed by another one, which she continued to leaf through with a strange trepidation. Valletta's face turned red, and her heart probably skipped a few beats. An aromatic pendant with lavender. Expectation. Answer me, please. The story of one day, or the discovery of other people's talents. Ira and Kazura finally decided to start cooking the butter. The girl scooped up some milk with a ladle and strainer. After pouring them into a container with a neat movement, the maid handed the glass to Sheena, and he closed it with a lid and began to shake it well. After opening the glass again and seeing that no result had been achieved, Kazura realized that this was not enough. The noise coming from the kitchen attracted other maids as well. All the maids looked in surprise at Kazura's attempts to shake the milk, and he only explained that this is how butter is made. From fatigue, the guy just fell to the floor, and Ira took the initiative in cooking. Era herself also failed, and then it turned into some kind of strange game, because the container with milk began to change hands. The noise and cheerful cries of the maids, who tried to cheer up the participants of a kind of battle for endurance, attracted the attention of Marie, who was also invited to join the fun. Although Marie picked up a strange container, she clearly did not have an understanding of what was going on. The girls around her began to talk that they needed to put more effort, shake, and, apparently, get butter. Marie smiled with some anticipation, because she did not expect butter to be made from milk. It aroused some kind of excitement in her. Turning the cup over, the maid began to shake it with incredible speed. Everyone was frozen in shock. Obviously, no one expected to see such skills in Marie. While still in a state of shock, everyone present shuddered when the maid announced that the milk had frozen properly. Thanking the girl, Kazura offered to immediately try the resulting product. At first, everyone tried only the butter itself, but after that it was decided to spread it on bread. Delicious. Valletta always looked too cute, but only Nina knew how soft her cheeks were. However, her friend clearly had no idea about this, considering it a joke. The sun's rays slowly began to fall on the small village. Morning came. The girl opened her blue eyes and got up from her chair. Apparently, it was in this position that she fell asleep yesterday. At the same time, in Japan, Shino, stretched in his own bed, took an energy drink to strengthen his health and, with a twinkle in his eyes, prepared for a new hectic day. The roads were quite empty, perhaps because it was still morning. Therefore, Kazura was able to get to his cabin in the mountains quickly enough. After getting out of the car, Shino immediately decided to check his phone. The delivery my father was talking about was coming soon. His guesses were confirmed by the noise of an approaching car. Turning to face the truck coming at him, the guy waited patiently until it stopped. The courier who got out of the truck asked if he lived here and identified the person he was looking for. Saying that the delivery was for him, Shino asked the courier to unload the goods and leave it right next to the house. After all the goods were unloaded, Kazura and the courier said goodbye, and the first one sent words of gratitude to catch up with the departing truck. After unpacking the delivered goods, the brunette noted with a twinkle in his eyes that he had finally received a hydroelectric generator. Until the new delivery arrived, Shino decided to check the product for serviceability. Having found the instructions in the depths of the box, the guy began to study it. A certain degree of tilt is required for the generator to work. Problem: it will simply be impossible to install this generator in the mansion because there is a very flat surface. Due to the failure, Shino immediately began to think of a backup plan. Thinking about whether he could put a water wheel on the waterway, he realized that then he would need to make an aqueduct to draw water. Due to the discrepancy between ideas and reality, the amount of work has increased and new questions have appeared. Will the load of the water wheel be enough, or do you need to look for another way out? This will all have to be discussed with the others before installation. After a while, another delivery van arrived. This time there were clearly more boxes that were unloaded. After reviewing the invoice, which was given by the courier service, Shino concluded that the digging tools had now arrived. All sorts of strange mechanisms were laid out in boxes, with corresponding pictures. The stone chisels also looked perfect in appearance, and they were made of carbide. However, along with this view, Kazura was flooded with memories of how difficult it was to explain why he needed so many of these things. The guy also received a plan of tools from the Meiji period. The era falling around the 19th, the beginning of the 20th century, it would be nice to establish their production in Istria. Speaking of Istria, what about steelmaking? The discovery of iron should be a revolutionary event, and Shino himself was not going to teach residents how to do it, but everything depended on the situation with the surrounding countries. Closing the boxes, the brunette thought that if the iron has already been found in another country, he does not mind reselling it. This is something that would be worth listening to from Nelson and Zirconium. The thought came to the bright head of the guy that, after all, the work would have gone much easier with iron. Maybe he should buy a book on steelmaking after all. After checking everything delivered, Shino reloaded everything onto his vehicle and smiled happily. It's been a long time since he's ridden this. After getting behind the wheel of his transport, Kazuru started the engine and enthusiastically headed to the village of Grise. It's time to dig. Turning off the engine of his transport, the first thing Shino did was run into Valette, who apparently came to meet him. This time, Kazura really brought a lot of things with him. Valette's enthusiastic glance at the unknown goods was too frank not to notice it. After greeting the girl, the brunette apologized that he could not bring everything at once, because then the truck would simply not have withstood the load. Valette waved her hands, saying that everything was fine. Folding her arms and smiling happily, the blonde announced that she had just finished cooking dinner, and this time rice with red beans was on the menu. It is very difficult to reject such an invitation to the table. The girl's words reminded Kazuru that he had bought quite a lot of food last time. Rice with red beans in Japan was a kind of festive dish, which Shino informed Valletta about and laughingly noted that today they had a small holiday, and the girl only agreed. Breaking into a happy smile, the girl announced that it was a holiday today because Kazura had finally returned. These words made the guy considerably embarrassed. He clearly hadn't expected this. Too excited, Shino offered to go inside the house. The table was already set. All the dishes looked amazing and too appetizing to just look at. The brunette did not need long invitations to the table. The first dish he tasted, the omelette, was simply delicious. Valen shared the same point of view, although in this way he made a little mistake that he stole a couple in advance. Apologizing for his lack of restraint, the man received support from Shino, who said that he understood him perfectly, and Valletta, in truth, was an amazing cook. Embarrassed by such praise, the blonde began to giggle merrily under her breath, and the two men continued to discuss the exquisite taste of her dishes. They even compared it to the food in Havel's mansion. However, Shino would prefer Valletta's food. Having caught the right moment, Valen threw in the phrase that his daughter would be an excellent wife. Valletta's cheeks blushed at these words, but Kazura choked on his food and had to drink himself off with water. Moving from the table to the beds where mint was grown, the guy and the girl began to discuss that, although some sprouts are large, but their growth is much slower than it says in the book, but it does not look like poisoning. Trying to figure out the reasons for the slow growth, the couple noted that mint, which received fertilizer, has relatively fast growth. There was an assumption that the problem was in the nutrients. Kazuru asked if the girl had noticed anything strange, but she said no. They were watered quite often, and she pulled out the weeds right away. That's what the guy got hooked on. He immediately asked how big the weeds were. The weeds were small, no more than a centimeter, and they were immediately pulled out, and there have been no changes lately. It gave me an idea. It is possible that the nutrients were indeed depleted, as if there were nutrients left, then the weeds would be larger, but the weeds are pulled out every time, and there should be enough nutrients. Nevertheless, there should be nutrients left at the bottom of the pot, as Valletta took care of them every day. But while they were in Istria, other villagers took care of them. Exactly. They watered the plants in the same way, which meant that moisture was evenly distributed, which is why even the root weeds could absorb water with all the nutrients. It could mean that the plants are from this world, no matter how much. Kazura interrupted the girl before she could finish saying that it didn't mean anything yet. Nevertheless, the unlimited growth of the roots will continue, but no changes in nutritional value. The cut of the difference in size is still quite incomprehensible. If the planted plants wither, but the nutrients do not return to the soil and this cycle repeats, then the soil of this world will lose all the nutrients, but these were all just assumptions. Valletta said that then she would try to pay more attention to the plants to confirm their assumptions. Kazura got up from the ground and said that it was time for him to return to Japan again. After asking if the guy would be back for dinner, the girl received a positive response and an indirect request to cook her omelette. Beaming at such a request, Valletta gladly agreed to cook it again for dinner. This became an incentive for the guy to return on time. After saying goodbye, the girl once again cast a sad glance at the beds. A guy and a girl were sitting on the shore and fishing. They discussed Zirconia's act of allocating extra money for clothes or toiletries. Marie thought that the money would be enough for something else, so she definitely should thank Madame with her honest work. Blushing from her own thoughts, the girl still answered Havel's question about what she had already acquired. From the selection of purchases, the guy was interested in the padlock. Nodding in agreement, the girl got a little nervous and explained that it was for the closet or bedside table where the money would be stored. Although Cavail himself thought that it was better to keep money in the bank, he did not impose this idea. Then he suggested locking the room itself, not all the shelves in it. Marie replied that she did not want to ask for it. Havel looked at the girl and suggested that in that case he would ask for it himself, which made the girl embarrassed. Confused by the current situation, Marie did not find what to say, and then the guy stroked her on the head, saying that at such moments it was enough to thank her. Isaac looked attentively at the tent spilt, from which he was distracted by Havel, who returned from fishing, informing him that it was time to cook dinner. Noticing the strange expression on the knight's face, the guy asked if something had happened, but the knight himself gave an uncertain answer that everything was fine. Isaac, seeing the fishing accessories in the couple's hands, asked if they were really there, because he had not seen him get up early in the morning. Havel said he took advantage of his time to relax by the river with his sister. The news that Marie was Havel's sister surprised Isaac because the girl was not his blood relative. Answering that the guy himself hates the idea that their mothers are different, he once again confirmed that the girl is his sister. The knight asked one of his team members if Kazuru knew that Marie was his sister, to which he received a negative answer, and after concluding that it was not important, but he expressed gratitude later. Isaac's face twisted with anger. Havel always waited for the right moment to observe Kazura's actions and even decided to tell him the truth. Shaking his head, the guy reminded that he had done nothing wrong and had no malicious intent. Isaac raised his voice significantly when he said that he would have closed his eyes if he had done something behind Zirconium or himself, but it was not worth using Shino as a tool to achieve his goals. He's doing too much for them. The guy nodded his head, making it clear that he completely agrees with the words spoken and swears that he will not do anything like that. The young man's gaze made Isaac flinch. Clenching his fist harder, the knight hit his partner in the chest with it and, passing by, advised him not to forget the words he had said today. At the same time, in Japan, Kazura himself enjoys shopping trips. His shopping list for today was definitely very extensive. The store's sellers were obviously delighted with such a customer. It's not often that such people come to them. They immediately started recommending products for purchase. Having no desire to argue with the seller, Kazura simply agreed to the proposed printer and asked to add accessories for it. Paper, cuttings. The purchase of a printer should greatly simplify the work with drawings, and it is also worth checking whether the parchment from Istria will work in the printer. The seller continued to talk about the goods so that their client would not feel embarrassed and did not change the store to another one. Although, however, Shino was not particularly interested in the details, he agreed to everything. Arriving at the usual store, Shino loaded his cart again with several barrels for additional gasoline and a large refrigerator. Following the guy's list, a familiar voice distracted him. The store clerk greeted Shino and asked what he was looking for today. After greeting an acquaintance in response, the guy asked if he could ask someone to take the goods to the checkout, since he himself would like to look around the store. Returning to the question of what Kazuru needed, he asked the seller if they had a centrifuge, saying that he would like to try to make soybean oil. The man was confused, because they did not have such a product. But he reacted sharply and said that he could order a catalog and arrange delivery exclusively for Shino, although there would be commissions. Apparently, during the time with a lot of money, the guy simply forgot how to refuse people. Saying that he would be delighted to receive the goods within 2 or 3 days, he and the seller agreed on this. After saying goodbye to the man, Kazura continued to follow his list, which was compiled by Valletta. Although the list was strange, I can't find out the reason for buying such things now. Passing by one product, he caught the guy's attention. It was a drawing board. Up to this point, Shino had been making crooked notes in his notebook, just like during university, and this device would definitely simplify his life. When he saw one of the store's sellers, the brunette attracted his attention to himself and asked him to pack 2 such boards with him. After that, the guy wandered around the store a little more, putting a ruler for drawing, a compass, and much more into his cart. His next destination was a bookstore. Still, Valletta asked him to bring new books, and because the girl was interested in many things, the cart in the bookstore looked too chaotic. The end point was a pharmacy. As promised, Kazura returned to Istria for dinner. The guy ate the dishes prepared by Valletta with both cheeks, and she talked about the changes that await Istria in the future. Joining the dialogue, Shino said that it would take some time for Istria to start changing, since this still requires the introduction of pumps and much more, so it's definitely going to take time. Shino honestly said that most of everything depends on the production of pumps, and no one knows when the craftsmen will be able to start their production. Although Valletta hoped that they would be able to work hard next spring. After starting to wash the dishes, Kazuru said that there are also craft machines and ice houses that need to be made. It is very difficult to start a new project right after the previous one. Valletta sighed understandingly, concluding that the plans for the next year were only to dig wells and investigate extensions. Well, there are machines for making tools. After washing the dishes, Shino remembered that he had not come to the girl empty-handed, but with small souvenirs, which he told her about. On the table in front of Valletta were various care products in a beautiful and feminine package. It was probably the first time the girl had seen such a thing. Interrupting the girl's admiration, Shino asked her to open the boxes, because they are even more beautiful inside. Kazuru himself didn't understand anything about cosmetics, but he was grateful for the instructions for it. The funny advertising label on the cream package clearly amused the couple, and the guy said that you shouldn't worry too much about any minor changes in the skin. The guy said that it's worth trying to put some makeup on your skin and keep looking, because something might not work. After Valletta and Kazura sorted out the cosmetics and switched to tea, the girl decided to give her gift as well. Handing a small bag to the guy sitting opposite, the girl asked him to open it. Inside was a wooden pendant with petals carved on the wooden pendant itself. He smelled of lavender. Valletta said that she tried to make an aromatic pendant, and, since it was the first attempt, it could turn out to be a little strange, but her fears were dispelled by Kazuru's enthusiastic words. Kazura also noticed that the inside of the pendant was empty, and the girl confirmed this by saying that the essential oil was soaked in a piece of cloth inside. Clutching the hem of her dress, Valletta continued to say with a slight blush on her cheeks that she would like Kazura to wear this pendant when he returned to Istria. Smiling at the gift in his hands, Kazura put his hands behind his neck and immediately tied it around her. The pendant fit perfectly and fit into Shin's image. A slight blush on his cheeks betrayed the guy's slight nervousness, but he sincerely thanked the girl and said that he would always keep it to himself. Smiling at what the girl told her, she clenched her hands awkwardly. It might not be what she wanted a little bit, but it's fine as it is. The next day, Kazura was preparing to leave. He planned to return next month, but if Valletta needs anything, she can always contact him. Clenching her fists in a reassuring gesture, the girl said that Sheena should also contact her if she or the villagers could do something for him. An awkward smile paired with a blush of embarrassment on her cheeks surfaced in her memories. Basic parting words. The usual wishes for a good road, waves of her hand, and after the person she was waving turned his back on her, an awkward sadness. Nina sighed heavily, watching her friend's expression. If she continues to do this, then they will really take him away, but nothing. Lavender means waiting. She would wait, even though she was worried. After collecting a small purse, Valletta completed filling it with a book about the history of metal processing, and that was the end of her packing. When he saw that his daughter was going somewhere, the older man asked if she was going somewhere. The answer did not take long to wait. The girl said that she was going to the mountains and asked to cook dinner herself if she did not return by evening. Opening the wooden front door, the girl smiled at her father and said that he wants to take a look at iron ore, and she will run to the mountains, so there should be no problems. Although she got out on time, apparently Valletta was a little late since Lodor was already waiting for her at the designated place. Apologizing, the girl said that she would count on his guidance in the route. The girl hurriedly took out a prepared book and poked at one of the pictures and told the man that the purpose of the trip was to find such a stone. The inclusions on it can be red or black. Lodor enthusiastically looked at the images in the book Valletta had brought and admired how detailed they were made, and the girl herself told him that these were photographs. The man cheered up even more, because no one expected anything else from their guest from another world, but Valletta only noted that compared to everything else that he brought, this is not such an amazing thing. Having finished studying the purpose of the campaign, Lodor invited his young companion to start moving towards the mountains. Still, the path is not close. Their movement speed was too fast to understand. Although Lodor, apparently, was used to this, he was still worried about Valletta, so he asked if the pace was normal, to which he received consent. Although their conversation did not touch on this, the man noted that he reminded him about the cave on the mountainside that he had seen. The girl tried to answer the phrase of her escort, but immediately received a warning that it was not worth doing this. The man continued his monologue. He saw a cave that appeared to be an abandoned mine, and there were piles of large stones around it. Perhaps this could be the place from the photo. Memories overwhelmed the escort. He even remembered that it was raining heavily that day and they decided to take shelter in the tunnel itself, which, as it turned out, was infested with bats. To be honest, it was very hard back then. They stepped in bat droppings several times and they couldn't get out because they would have been soaked to the skin. These memories did not inspire positive feelings in Valletta. When they reached the entrance to the forest, Lodore reported that they had come a long way and almost reached their goal, but Valletta was already completely out of breath and she needed time to catch her breath. Still, the difference in strength was obvious. Lodore goes hunting every year around this time, so it's not just that he's familiar with the area. The man went into the depths of the forest for a while the girl was resting, and returned with a branch in his hands. You could get some water from this branch to refresh yourself by tilting it. However, Lodore himself said that it is not worth drinking a lot, because your stomach may hurt. Although now, they probably won't be in danger. Putting a branch to her lips, the girl thanked the attendant for his care and took a couple of sips. After quenching her thirst, Valletta asked if Lodore would drink, but he only waved off, noting that if he did, then Kazura would get angry. What was said did not immediately reach the girl, but when she blushed, it became obvious that she understood. After a slight commotion, Valletta and Lodore continued their advance, but already into the depths of the forest. The man cut the sticks with a sharp knife, and the girl slowly followed him. After stopping for a second, Lodore offered to take some shiny branches, since the door of his house has become very bad lately. Valletta supported him in this idea, and they decided to gather branches on the way back. After some time, the two-person team finally overcame the densely grown forest and the landscape. Open to their gaze, struck them to the core. A river flowed through the stone path, which, because of the sun's rays, seemed to be covered with precious stones, and the stones burdening it on all sides created an atmosphere of mystery and peace. Lodore supported his admiration for the new place, noting that his reaction was the same for the first time, and it was their favorite place to camp. There are holes in the river itself so you can swim or catch fish. Pointing in the direction of a small pile of stones, the man said that the stones from the photo were in that direction and Valletta confirmed his guesses. It was difficult to confuse these red stones with something else. Putting aside thoughts about the stones for a while, Valletta asked if this river was the same as that next to the village and received a positive answer. The river is the same, but it merges with others along the course of the current. A plan of action immediately matured in the girl's head. They could make a raft on the river and use it to deliver stones to the village, and then the wood can be dried and used for a fire, and the terrain is mountainous so they won't interfere. The girl was distracted from thoughts about the implementation of her plan by Lodore, who offered to look at the cave, which he talked about on the way, and the girl only agreed. Once surrounded by high rocky walls for some reason, the girl abruptly reached into her purse for a book, and when she managed to find the right picture, realization came to her. There was a large vein of ore in the place where they are now, as evidenced by the striped patterns on the stones. Towards nightfall, the girl returned home and, having had time to take a shower, began to think about how to use the ore she found. Some of them will be useful for construction and other things, but the girl will leave the rest for her needs. Nevertheless, the girl still has to follow the basic training that Isaac taught her. Basic fitness training, the use of sword and shield, weapons training, and much more. In Valletta's memories, Isaac always looked serious when he talked about learning everything gradually. She can't do everything at once. Still, the power to protect people close to her is not just the skill of hand-to-hand combat. Turning her legs over each other, the girl understood that she should be ready for anything, but she simply does not have free time, which is why, that time, when they were saying goodbye, she couldn't tell him anything, she only confusedly wished him a good road and looked at his retreating back. Clenching her small fists, determination shone in the blonde's eyes. Even so, she would do her best, no matter what, if she wanted to be with Kazuru. Picking up the lower part of her robe from the ground, the girl pulled on her pants and then sighed heavily. It's exhausting sometimes. Nevertheless, the embarrassing memories of Kazura's gifts made the girl smile and tell herself that it was still worth taking a bath. Meanwhile, on the way to Istria, Kazura's escort, and he decided to make a night stop. Everyone has built a fire and has already set up tents for the night. The four of them were sitting around the campfire, and their conversation about family ties between each other surprised me a little. Still, Sheena assumed that Hobble and Marie were relatives, but the fact that they were brother and sister was a little surprising. although he would have been glad to know that from the very beginning. Havel put his hand on his heart and sincerely apologized, because he did not think that this was particularly important information for fulfilling his duties to Kazuru. After hearing this, Kazura began to look at everything a little differently. He offered the attendant an option to reduce working hours so that the brother and sister could return home together, although it's a little late. Isaac looked suspiciously at his friend, and he only thanked him and said that they were so good that they could stay together with Kazuro, but it made him think. Shino did not often hide his curiosity, and now asked in plain text why Marie works as a maid, even though she is the daughter of a nobleman. The truth was that Havel's father conceived a child from a girl who was in involuntary service, so that's how it all happened. According to how many children of such people are born with the same status, Havel does not like it. Smiling happily, the guy turned to Marie, saying that they were very grateful that they had received a new assignment. Marie blushed and became nervous at such an unexpected question, and Shino tried to calm her down. Kazura looked at the trembling girl and assumed that, after being informed that she was a slave, the maid began to fear that she would be fired, although the tension itself is too unusual for such a reason. In the memories of the brunette, the words once said by Havel himself surfaced that all this was happening because he had something to protect. Now he understood that the guy had been talking about Marie back then. Clenching his hand into a fist, Shino beamed at how wonderful the family love between Havel and Marie was, and said that he did not care about social status. Smiling and offering to get along well, the guy offered the option to change the subject and talk about medicine in Istria, which confused even Havel. The guy still did not want to deviate from the implementation of his plan and continued to talk about Marie, but received a joyful answer that Shino himself did not mind. For some reason, it was a little annoying. Havel wondered why, even after learning Marie's circumstances, his interlocutor did not offer to free the girl from her slave status. In Shino's own head, there were only happy thoughts about brotherly love and the promise of support in case of an extremely bad situation in the family. Having decided that since Havel supports Marie directly, Kazura himself will provide support from the outside. So he said it would be a good idea for Marie herself to know about it, and it would be better to explain it to her a little later. With a slight twitch, Havel agreed. The conversation clearly did not go the way the guy wanted, but if Marie herself knows the true identity of Kazura, they will definitely become closer, and for now he will rejoice at such progress. Finally arriving in Istria, Kazura stretched, and Zirconia, who came out to meet him, greeted him and suggested that the guy was tired from a long trip. Sighing wearily, the brunette said that although he managed to return on time, the trip was really a little heavy, but Zirconium, realizing his displeasure, said that the bath was ready. Thanking the girl for taking such care of his well-being, Kazura began rummaging in his bag, simultaneously finding out if his interlocutor had taken a bath. After receiving a negative response, the guy handed over a small bag. A small souvenir comes from the hot springs. Not only does it smell nice, but it also helps to relieve fatigue. Yes, and soap and shampoo are available in the set. Smiling happily, the girl thanked for such a large number of gifts and assured that she would definitely try it today. After thanking him, Kazura supplemented his words with a request that Zirconium come to him after the bathroom. The girl froze in shock, but the guy continued to say that he would like to give something else. All those jars that he had brought for the ladies of this world came up in his memories, as well as the thought that Zirconium did not know Japanese, so he would have to explain everything on his own. The girl asked if Kazura wanted to see her in a somewhat strange form. Although this surprised the guy, he did not betray much importance to this, but Zirconium squeezed her hand with force. After taking a bath, changing clothes and holding the refrigerator with food, Shino, satisfied with his work, smiled happily with a sense of accomplishment. Having spread out all the cosmetics brought on the table, Kazura began to study the instructions for them slowly, as Zirconium knocked on the door. Opening the door to the room, a girl in a thin nightgown for sleeping went inside and apologized for the wait, embarrassed. The guy invited her to sit down and informed her that he would make tea now. Why the girl sat on the bed is a mystery, because it would be more comfortable for them at the table. Finally paying attention to how the girl who came to him looked, Kazura pushed away obscene thoughts from himself, referring to the fact that he was just thinking too much. Attempts to start a dialogue with questions about how Zirconium knew bath products suspiciously did not end successfully. Turning sheepishly towards the girl sitting on his bed, Kazura said that the tea was ready and it was worth being careful not to get burned, and his flow of words abruptly stopped. Zirconium, sitting on his bed, was shaking with fear or cold, and transparent droplets of tears had accumulated in the corners of her eyes. What's going on? Zirconia continued to shake the whole thing slightly, and her voice trembled when she said Shino's name, which made the guy himself jump nervously. For some reason, his head began to spin, and his brain was replaying a lot of thoughts that the guy did not understand at all what was going on. The girl began to say through tears that she would do everything right, and that this was her first time, and even asked to be more gentle with her. After these words, Kazura came to his senses at the behest of magic. Even if the guy came to his senses, why the girl started crying was very surprising to him, and then it dawned on him. The blame lies entirely with him. After apologizing, Kazura began to explain that he had called the girl to him for the wrong reason, for which she decided. He just wanted to give her a couple of things and thought the room would be more comfortable. The trembling hadn't completely let go of the zirconia yet, but the tears had stopped flowing from her eyes. She realized what had just happened, and there was silence for a couple of moments. The trembling was completely gone, but the tears began to flow with renewed vigor. The girl chattered that she was very sorry and that how could she even think that she would be called for such a thing because there are many other beautiful girls in the mansion. Interrupting the self-flagellation of the girl bursting into tears, Kazura said that zirconium is very beautiful and it exudes a very healing aura. For some reason, his words were interpreted as a desire to do what was spinning in an innocent woman's head. Expressing an exact denial of this idea, Kazura suggested that today's adventures be ended with this. With a slight tremor, the girl bowed her head in front of Shino with apologies, and he in turn did the same. The situation is very strange. After the door closed behind the zirconia, the brunette grabbed himself by the hair and began to think what kind of facial expression he should have when meeting a girl now. How could he be so stupid? Although it was all just a misunderstanding, but the memory of a tear-stained face made the brunette realize that he would not want to be hated even to tears. Still, it was worth just falling asleep now. Running into her own room and trying to catch her breath, zirconium slowly slid down the wooden door to the floor. It was a completely different situation, and a completely different person. Deep down, the girl knew that she was still clean, but she would not want to see such scenes anymore. Memories of bygone days seemed to come alive before my eyes. Pain, tears, screams. Why, even after all this time, does she allow herself to cry about it? She misses her family like crazy. A faint knock on the door made the guy get out of bed and allow Marie to come into his room. Wishing Tom a good morning, the maid asked him to take care of her today. Apparently, this is a familiar start to the day. Sitting on the bed, the guy awkwardly and sleepily smiled and waved to the guest as a greeting. Beckoning the girl with his hand, Kazura asked her to come to him, leading him to a large snow-white closet. The guy said that this was a refrigerator and Marie should take all the products from here in the future. Food in this place can be stored for much longer as it is constantly cooled. For some reason, there was an incomprehensible fear and confusion on Marie's face. Kazura continued to explain to the girl the principle of operation of the new device and noted that for today, it is better to have breakfast with soup from a bag and you can take canned bread. Opening the door that led to the dining room, Kazura immediately heard a greeting from Nelson and did the same, not forgetting to greet Lisa sitting at the table. When he saw the empty seat at the table, Shino immediately asked where zirconium was now, but Nelson's answer was somewhat vague. He said that due to overwork, she would rest in her room for a while. Kazura's face turned pale, and the man at the table only informed him that zirconium had been working very hard until yesterday, and apparently accumulated fatigue had made itself felt. Awkwardly pushing back a chair and sitting down on it, Kazura thought that it was clearly not only fatigue, but also what happened yesterday. He should have dealt with this sooner. Lisa's voice distracted the guy from his thoughts about zirconium. She informed him that she would now help him with his work. Since the water wheels are already installed, you can safely move on to solving other tasks. Lisa explained that such a result was possible only because of the hard work of many workers. Nevertheless, the girl personally went through the homes of wounded soldiers, asking them if they could provide any help. Still, the people who participated in the battles had the basic skills that were needed to build camps and maintain sedimentation machines, so they were able to pick up minor tasks from the carpenters who were engaged in construction. This approach to solving the problem surprised Kazura very much. The rapprochement of the two sides to coordinate their common interests would be subject only to Lisa herself, whom the townspeople love. After finishing with Lisa's work questions, she asked the guy if he could give her some time after eating, and Nelson added that if their conversation concerns what they discussed last time, then he gives permission to enter any room. Entering the room, in which there were many cabinets, tightly packed with books, Lisa was informed that this was an archive room and that many documents were stored here. Holding a candle in her hands, which served as the only light source, the girl continued the conversation about the fact that most of the documents are stored here, except for the important ones that her father keeps in his office. After finding the right document, the couple moved to the table to examine the plans in which the artisans were remaking the water wheels. For some reason, the strength of the wooden box was increased, but Lise herself was not sure about it. Tucking one of the stray strands behind her ear, the girl said that this was what she wanted to show him. Inflamed with energy, the guy began to study. Having thoroughly studied the drawings, Kazura came to the conclusion that there were no problems with them, and it was worth trying one of them as a prototype for mass production. Lisa raised her small fist to her chest, saying words of gratitude for Istria's help. She asked how they could thank him, but Kazura immediately replied that there was no need. In fact, when the situation in the country was getting worse and worse, no one knew what to do, but when Kazura appeared, hope for the future returned. Lisa wanted to thank the guy and be useful to him. The girl was very much looking forward to the opportunity to work with Shino and provide him with any possible help. And in order to convince him of her words, she came a few steps closer. Noticing something on the guy's neck, Lisa clarified what it was and received a quick response that it was an aromatic pendant, inside of which there is a piece of cloth soaked in essential oil. The girl touched Kazura's neck with her thin fingers without hesitation, which made him blush, and noted that the floral motif of the pendant was very soothing. A little worried, Lisa asked where Kazura got this pendant from, and he replied that he received it on his return to the village for the last time. The girl, with a slightly disappointed expression on her face, called the guy by name and lightly touched his chest with her hand. The atmosphere has become too strange and oppressive. They were still alone in the room, and Elisa was standing too close, continuing to repeat the name of the guy with slightly flushed cheeks. Such a heavy atmosphere was destroyed by the creaking of the door. This helped Kazura to come to her senses and step back from the girl. Lisa's father appeared in the doorway, asking why the two were still here. For some reason, the girl reacted by smiling a little too calmly, saying that they had looked at the drawings together. Nelson was a little surprised by this answer, because it is dark enough in this room and it would be easier to bring the drawings to the light in the living room. Lisa asked why her father came to the archive, to which he replied that he needed to take care of documents related to the army, otherwise zirconium would worry. Seeing a chance to leave Lisa without his presence, Kazura asked if he could also take a look at these documents, citing that he also wanted to study military affairs a little. The man didn't mind, but immediately said that he obviously couldn't tell much. This did not upset Shino, offering his help with the documents. He said that the main points would be enough. Lisa, who was left behind, was smiling, but there was a slight hatred raging inside her, because she was so close to her goal. Also, this pendant on Kazura's neck clearly worried her. To wear a gift from a commoner meant that he himself was the same. And somehow Lisa felt the presence of a woman, although, in her opinion, the bracelet of mercy should have been a warning to many. And besides, her own father had interfered with her plans. A long silence on the part of the girl made the two men turn to her and call out. With a slight shrug of her shoulders, so as not to betray the full range of feelings that were raging inside her, Lisa smiled and calmly followed the men. The discussion of the new drawings and their application in everyday life went well, and Lisa's communication skills helped a lot in solving some problems. Time was inexorably slipping away, and the implementation of all plans went on quite calmly, and Kazura did not forget to eat well, although with the help of Marie. After returning from the shower, Shino found Era in the kitchen, who was apparently waiting for him, as she apologized for the late visit. The girl did not want to distract the guy from his business, but this time she tried to cook the sweet she was talking about and would like Shino to try it. There was a small bowl of fruit on the table, filled with bright juice inside. Compote is considered a dessert from medieval Europe, which consists of pieces of boiled fruit and sugar syrup made from wine seasoned with spices. Offering Air tea, she pushed the prepared desserts to the guy and he did not refuse. The amount of sweetness was perfect, and so was the taste itself. Such an atmosphere allowed the two people to talk calmly while drinking tea. After eating dessert, Kazura asked Era if she ever went to Zirconia's room, to which she agreed, saying that she was giving her work reports. Then Shino asked the girl to give him something. There were jars of various cosmetics on the table. While Kazura wanted to tell how to use them all, Era only turned pale. This reaction reminded the guy that all this time he wanted to know exactly what Nelson and Zirconium were saying about him. Before that, the man himself said that Kazura was just his friend, but no one really knows how things are. Era began to speak with her head slightly bowed. She said that Kazura is Grayson and gives them great support, which did not surprise the guy himself. And then the girl said that she had also heard that he had come to bestow the blessing of power, but this part was already shocking. Why do people know about this? Kazuru immediately wondered what kind of power everyone was talking about and who else knew about it. But he didn't get a clear answer. It is possible that these rumors started because of the captured people who fought in the village of Grizia. Emerging from his thoughts, Kazura wanted to ask the maid to tell him everything she had heard, but when he saw her frightened face, he said there was nothing to be afraid of and asked her to continue with what they had discussed before. 2 days later, in the meeting room, Sheena finally met with Zirconium again. The girl apologized for the long absence, but the guy noted that what he handed over was used and worked with a bang. As soon as the guy sat down, Lisa turned to him with a guilty face, saying that she would not be able to help today because she had a meeting. There was nothing wrong with that, because meetings are also important. Apologizing for the delay, Lisa informed that the inspection of the troops would take place in 3 days. Zirconium was clearly interested in this part. Recently, she was given a brief explanation on armament, and if no one is against it, then she would like to see everything with her own eyes. Abruptly interrupting her flow of admiration, Zirconia noticed Lisa's talking smile and waved her hands and said that it was not worth paying attention to her words. Clearing her throat awkwardly, the girl said that if she needed any information, she would be able to consult. But Kazura, on the contrary, noted that he did not really understand anything about all this, so there would be little help from him. Nelson, although he said that Shino had already provided overwhelming assistance in solving cases, but noted that advice on the military unit would also be needed. But they were already in debt to him, the man finished bowing his head. Interrupting the awkward streams of gratitude, Kaduzra offered so far only to see what data they have, and this dialogue dragged on for a long time. After some time, in one part of the city, Kazura reported that everything seemed to be ready and they could start. He had a piece of paper in his hands, and finally, today, this is where he appears. Something that has been bought in the native world for so long.